All right, welcome back to day 2 of this iPad in the midst of pandemic course. We'll recap a couple of things from yesterday, and we'll also sort of be flexible in the fact that we realize that they're transitioning the iPads from one management system to another, and they happen to be doing it today and yesterday, as we learned by us having like January 9th as the date and stuff like that. So there may be some app breakages and stuff. So we'll cover as many apps as we can, and we'll also be a little bit flexible and sort of kind of list some things, but also make this kind of as usable with built-in stuff as possible. Some of the things that theoretically come by default. So we'll see what happens. So I know we left with Notability yesterday. I know we had some issues with some Notability app update crashes and stuff last night. Any Notability questions beyond Christine's issues with it crashing?
So I looked at the tutorial, and the tutorial seemed to do a lot more than I could figure out how to do. Like, I could copy and paste things, I could take things off of a document and give it a call out box, but like, they seemed to think that this was like practically a Hollywood movie maker, and I didn't perceive that.
Yeah, and I think that might be in some of those, depending on what version we're running or what version they have pushed out currently, that may be one of those weird deviations in where we're at right now, since they are doing it literally this week, which of course is perfect timing for an iPad course to have all the apps be running different versions this week. So that's probably the situation. I definitely would say that Notability, even if the tutorial says, oh, you can like record video and audio and do all these things, which you can do, it's more about like giving, let's say, feedback, or like you have the PDF, you record a little audio note and you send it back to Drive for the student so they hear it. It's not really content creation so much as it's like you can say, hey, listen, I'm going to take this PDF, I'm going to open it from Drive into Notability. I can mark it up. Maybe I leave a little audio comment and then I'll put it back to Drive so the kid can see it, the student can have it. Sort of more along that lines than like pure content creation. Also knowing that you could do like a little doodle and a little sort of, you could talk yourself through something. So meaning what I'll do is I'll share like in terms of like the content creation, what you might end up doing is like, if I'm in Drive, but if I go to Notability, and this is a PDF I just brought in from Drive, but if I come over here, I'll make a new note. I think in terms of like the content creation standpoint where I see it useful, is like if you were to do, let's rename this explanation. You start recording and say, I'm going to explain how to do basic math. So I'm going to do, like 2 + 2, equals 4. That's math. Right? So then you have that like as a cohesive sort of drawn out thing that can then be explained. Oops. You can then listen to it, right? It gives you that little scale back so you can listen to it. You can delete it and re-record. So if a student was trying to explain something to you and they had difficulty with it, then what happens is when you upload it, it'll actually give you an audio file attached to the document file in Drive. So if we go to Google Drive, it'll be a PDF and then there'll be a recording with it. So then you could actually then listen to how they explained it. I would say that's kind of where you would be getting that information feedback or that kind of content creation aspect of it. Because that's sort of where it would be. Now, like Jen, you have second graders, you can try that with them in this terms of at the beginning part of the year, this may be a lot of technical steps for them to master. For like second graders, it might just be easy to say, you go to Drive and, you have your PDF and you say, open your PDF, go to the 3 dots, open in, choose Notability, and then that'll open it like I have here, like in this new note, and then you just, can annotate it and mark it up. And then when they want a little arrow and just go back to Google Drive and then send to Google Drive. And you'll notice it says the folder, like can be PDF demos. So for like a second grader, your kids have like a math folder. So maybe you put the PDF, you use Hapara to push the PDF into their math folder. So when they open it up in the math folder, it'll send it to Notability, and then Notability will remember where that file came from in Drive. So then when they have it, it'll say folder, like, Miss Chung math. So then they can send it right back to it. So that would probably be your workflow. Use that Hapara copy and append the student name thing to the documents, put it in their math folder or ELA or whatever, reading, writing, whatever folder you want. Those simple instructions about the 3-dot open in Notability, opens in Notability, mark it up, use a little box with the arrow, send it back to Google Drive, and it'll automatically put it back in that same folder. It's a little bit of a process, but it'll become easier and more commonplace, as time goes on. So just a small option. Cool. All right, now I figure we'll do a little Seesaw, because Seesaw is pretty awesome. So Seesaw is what we use K2, but it is available for other grades. Christine used it last year in 3rd grade. We've used it for art and music, and like phys ed uses it. So it's available in different capacities. Now, in terms of like the middle school folks, I don't think there's really a place for it in middle school, especially since you have stuff like Notability and you have Schoology and you're using different platforms. However, we've been using Seesaw for years in the elementary level. So some of your kids may sort of innately be like, oh, is this like? Or you can kind of draw those comparisons of this does something like you used to do in 1st grade or 2nd grade or whatever it may be. So Seesaw, from a teacher perspective, and you can see on the right-hand side, it says HE Casal PD, and underneath it says teacher. I can see all these students. These are just sort of generic auto-created ones. And with classes, now this goes for the K1-2 teachers. The top left, there's the little, my name is up there. So every student now will be signing into Seesaw with their Google account, because that way when they tap their name in the top left, they will see a list of all their classes. So they'll see their homeroom class, like, Miss Nedwick's class or Miss Chung's class, but then they'll also see their art class and their music class and their PE class or whatever other classes they have that are using Seesaw. So then the student can just easily then toggle between them. From the teacher perspective, same idea. So like I have multiple of these classes that I'm listed as a teacher on, so I can toggle back and forth between them. Now, what we're going to do is I'll give you the dime tour, and then I'll actually have you guys be students in my class.
Chris, we don't have it.
You don't have Seesaw?
I don't think so.
No.
Unless it's spelled. Okay.
Right. And I now, because you guys are set up differently in that new thing, I cannot push out Seesaw to you. Okay. So we'll do a quick overview of
We
this.
can pay attention, I promise.
Yeah. Yes. No, yes, we'll do that.
We can play around with Notability while you guys are doing that.
Perfect. Perfect. This is what happens when you're doing Zoom STIs during a pandemic while systems are being migrated across systems. All right. So,
I have Seesaw for that.
what's that, Christine?
Is there a T-shirt for that?
Probably. What's up, Sarah? You have Seesaw, right, Sarah?
I have Seesaw and I use it, but for some reason it says you don't have any active classes associated with your account. I have 2 choices: restore archived class or create a new class.
For right now, don't worry about that, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to clean up classes and rosters and stuff. So what's going to happen is once the rosters are finalized, the computer teachers in your building will create your classes for you so that all the students it's all the same. So every student, because you may just if you created your class by yourself, and this is the thing about Seesaw that's good to know, is like you don't want to create a class by yourself, because you may name the kids, John, Jane, Billy, Bob, whatever, but then that doesn't connect to their Google account, or that doesn't line up with their or your kindergarten. Are you kindergarten or 1st grade, Sarah?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten. So for like you, it's even more important, because when we create their accounts with their Google username, their email address, their password, all that stuff. So every year their data tracks with them. And then, because otherwise if teachers did it individually, students might have 3 accounts because the teacher created 3 different versions of their name.
Yeah, I did that, remember?
Right, which was what was the problem. Because now what we want to do is we don't want to do that. We want to have these things. And once we get the rosters, the building computer teachers will do it. So that way there's consistency. And that way when the student gets it, it'll be seamless. They won't be Ben for your class, but Benjamin for music. And then that would be 2 separate like identities.
Right.
That's why we're uploading. So even kindergarten will do the sign in with Google.
So how can I play with it today if I don't have?
You're gonna sign in as a student, and you're gonna sign into my class. And then what we'll do is then we'll flip it around too, and I'll just show you some of the assignments.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah, go
Sorry.
for it. No
The
problem.
periodic table that you showed us yesterday, I was just looking for that. That's on your Heathcote
Gateway?
blog?
Yes, it's on the blog. It's on the blog post for this class. It's on there. And it's on the Gateway as well under the e-learning resources.
The Heathcote Tech page?
Yeah, the blogs.scarsdaleschools.org/Heathcote Tech.
Okay.
The one that I, Chris, still has the Adobe stuff on it.
Yeah, there's a couple of versions of it that we're working on
Okay.
tweaking and updating. There's a bunch of websites that we're sort of working with. What I'll do too is I'll put this into the chat. This is the one, see, like this is the one with the giant hole in the middle, because that's where the Adobe stuff was. Let me put this in here.
So these are all the apps I should have on my...
Potentially, or at least those are the apps you have access to. Again, one of the things about this is the apps are available. These are the ones that are available. It's not that you necessarily will have them, because like K and 1 don't use Tinker. That's a second and above coding app. The idea is that periodic table gives a sense of the apps that are available. It's then, sort of building to building. You work with your building computer teacher to say, I know that we have these apps. What are the apps that I should have on my student's iPad? And if you're being issued an iPad permanently, or at least for the year, you can sort of say, hey, I want these apps too. There's some other apps like Notability that you might not be giving to a kindergartner, but you may request that for yourself because you have, you find value in it. Similarly is like, would be another example, like, a Keynote you're going to have anyway, and Keynote actually might be good for K and 1 just because they don't have to log into their Google account. But certain things like you'll have to talk to your building computer teacher about making sure it is installed. Because one of the things we don't want to do is we don't want to have, and this even goes to the middle school, is like, we may have 1,000 apps in our catalog. Well, we don't want to push 1,000 apps out to every iPad because it's just a waste of space and it slows the whole system down. It'll slow the device down as well as the remote management. We only want really the apps on an iPad that the students are going to be using. So that's why it's like a building to building situation, because first grade in one building may lean heavily on one app, whereas in another building they use a slightly different app for something. Like Chatterpix is one thing, but Wixie is another. So some buildings will like gravitate to different apps. So that's why that periodic table is just to give a sense of the types of apps that are out there, so you can see what's up. But definitely talk to individual building computer teachers about, all right, I'm teaching with an iPad this year. My kids are going to have iPads. Like, what apps am I going to have on them? Talk about what apps you may want on them. Because some apps aren't great from a, fancy standpoint, but are extremely useful, right? Like, I really like Wixie. Wixie is a little bit basic. It's a little bit old school, but it's super easy to use. It's super easy to log into, and it auto saves. And it's cloud-based. So like, I love that for kindergarten, because like, even though it's not like the shiniest of apps, it is a really useful, simple, clean app to use for drawing and for things of that nature. So And Wixie is one of those ones where we only have the license K to 2. I can show that real fast at some point, but it's great and it's easy because it's easy. Like that's why it's super useful. And that's why with some of these, you have to balance the flash versus and the substance versus like ease of use in terms of grade level. But what I'll do first actually is we will work our way backwards in Seesaw. And what I'll do is I will log in and I will in a second show you. Let's go to this one. I'm going to go to my class. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create an assignment. All right, so I'm going to share my screen now. So in Seesaw, what's cool about Seesaw is, so I'm now on the website and I haven't played around a whole lot with the content creation. You can do it on the iPad. You can still assign activities and all that on the iPad. I haven't played around with a lot on the iPad because I don't use Seesaw personally with students. So I tend to do more of the management on my desktop because I'm also an administrator for the platform. So sort of instinctually, I always go back to this, but you could definitely manage the class from the iPad. So I'm logged in and I'm the teacher of this course and I have a bunch of these random students. So I can add now, posting student work is essentially just posting as if you were a student. So you could take a photo of something, you could do a drawing. What's nice is you could bring things in. So this also could be a place where, especially with second grade, you may use your PDF situation because you could do some PDF type annotation in Seesaw. But simply any one of these will basically all take you to roughly the same place where you have a set of drawing tools at the bottom. So you could still take a picture from in here. You can type text. So let's say I do a title. You can pick it up. This is one of those apps, we were talking about like in markup, you kind of have to like make the box bigger, then use that little box to like find the size and stuff. Seesaw is one of these ones where you can more easily take and change the size of the box, and it'll also change the size of the text, and it kind of scales with it. In markup, if you made the box too small, the words would kind of wrap around and get cut off, but Seesaw is one of these where it does that, move stuff around. You have the ability to write with a pencil. You also have, markers. It's hard to do it on a trackpad. You change the colors. So like this is blue, it's blue. So if I come over here to like my highlighter, you'll notice the highlighter changes to yellow. And obviously you can slide that around and change them. What's also cool about Seesaw is that you have these multiple pages. So you can add pages to a particular item. So this project, this thing that I'm working on doesn't have to be just one page. It can be multiple pages. What's also really nice is you can record and it'll give you a countdown and it starts recording. And what it does is it records up to 5 minutes. Now this is the hinky part, and not hinky in a bad way, but hinky in a potentially traffic jam way. So I've just been recording. I'm going to pause this. So I recorded 17 seconds. It will allow me to record 5 minutes. It will also allow me to record 5 minutes per slide, which would mean, oh, that's amazing. We have all this. That's so great, except it's not. Because when you're done, and you say done, and you click the check mark up in the top to turn it in. Now, I have to choose a student because I have this set up for this generic teaching purpose way, but for the kids, it would, since they log in as Google, it would automatically select them. They wouldn't be choosing a list of kids. It would automatically be uploading. I'll be Bart for right now. And you can make folders, which is really nice. So I'm going to say, all right, this will be, let's pretend this is music. So as a teacher, you can have folders and you can ask the kids to put them in different folders. Now it uploads. Now that uploaded pretty fast because I'm on my computer and it was one slide with 17 seconds. From the iPad, it might run slower. And then for every slide you make, it might take a little bit longer to upload. For every like bunch of audio you have, it might take a little bit longer. So you have to be careful with that, because you may have a situation where you have kids trying to upload huge Seesaw things, and their parents are sending you emails saying, hey, I can't upload. Why is this crashing? And it's like, well, because you added so much audio, you added so much content that it may be jamming up like home Wi-Fi networks and things like that. So you want to be careful about that. Now, that was just me just making something as if I was a student. From the teacher standpoint, though, the assign activity is really great, because when you go to the activity library, you can see activities that you've created. You can see activities that other people have created in Scarsdale. We are technically just Scarsdale. We're like one school for the purposes of Seesaw. Now, this is second grade activities because you can filter these. So if I wanted to go and see what kindergarten looked like, now these are made by Scarsdale teachers, and when teachers make activities, they have the ability to share them with the school community, and that's why they're up in here. If you make an activity, you don't need to share it with the school. It'll always show up in my library. Community is the community at large, meaning all Seesaw users. And again, people don't have to share them to this community, but they can. And it's nice because you have the ability to sort by grade. You know, or first grade, you can even sort by subjects. And you'll notice it does go up through middle school. So it is, or high school even. It has features, you know, I mean, you'd have to play around with it, and I would sort of talk separately with the middle school folks on the call about what other things you guys have in place, because Seesaw might really not be useful for you. Seesaw is great, and a lot of times people will use it through high school in places where they don't have something else. So sometimes you will hear about how schools use it K-12, and it's like, yes, but a lot of those situations, that's the only thing they use. Like, they don't have Schoology, they don't have, you know, they don't have iPads, they don't have like Google, they don't have other stuff. They only have Seesaw. So that's why a lot of times it scales higher than what we use it for.
Can you just click on 8th grade? I'm curious to see what they have there.
Yeah, and that's drama. Let's go to, here, we'll go to English language arts first. And so like what you could do is, let's do book snap. And then this is what an activity looks like. So when you create it or take one from the library, you give student instructions, and they come with the little icons so you can walk the kids through what exactly they have to do. You can assign it. Now, some of them will also have additional pieces, like they may have links to things. You can add links, you can add templates, things like that. So like, let's see, this looks like this might be a template. Right. So this one has, the directions a little bit different. Add response means that this is like a template that is being used by the kids. So you can create the template, have the kids use it. Now, if I were to assign this, and I'll assign this to my PD class. And then we'll view it. So now this comes in here. So now when the kids come in and they log in, they go to activities. Now, middle school teachers, you can actually do this if you have a computer handy, because I'll show you how to access this class, and you can actually do it like in a web browser without the app. What will happen is the kids will come in here to activities, and they'll see the directions. And what happens is when they click add response, it'll automatically, and I'll add the response as Bob. It'll give me the instructions. If the template was attached, now I'm logged in as like the teacher, so it's a little bit funky because I'm sort of straddling two lines. It'll actually load the template for them and write right on it. So like I can make one real fast, and I'm gonna go to my library, and I'll create a new activity, and I'll call this STI demo, you know, mark up this file. I could add voice instructions, which is cool. So for like kindergarten, you can click here, mark up this file, and then turn it back in. Don't forget to press the green check to submit it. Right? So then that way the kids not only see the directions, they can actually hit play, and then they can actually hear the directions. You can add examples, right? Let's say there's a tied to a YouTube video, or there's an image from a page, or you can do a template. So what I can do is I'm going to attach this item. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a picture. Oh, this probably won't work because I'm using, that's right. I'm using my camera for Zoom. So that's why that won't work. Hold on. So let me try this again. So STI, I forgot about that. Some apps will let you, like Flipgrid will let you use you can record using Flipgrid while on a Zoom, but some apps won't. Let's see, like mark this up. We'll have the voice instructions so you guys can see it. Say mark this up. And then I'll still add a template, but I'll just make a more simple template. And what I'll do is I'll go to these 3 dots and I'll put in a shape. Right, and I'll just, like that's that, right? So then what happens is, and you can make it multiple pages. So if you have a PDF, you can make it a multiple page PDF. So then that's there. Now I have this assignment with a title, with instructions, with audio instructions, and with a template attached that the students will work off of. Now the more options are where, like if you wanted to put in other things visible to teachers, I could add it to like folders, I could attach skills to it, and I'll click save. Now I've created this. I'm going to click assign, and I'm going to assign it to this. I'll assign it to the one class, and there we go. So now what you guys are going to do to take this is I'm going to have you guys join this class as students and do that assignment. So for those of you on iPads who have Seesaw, you can scan this code. If the middle school folks want to do this, you can, on your web browser, go to seesaw.me and click I'm a student. And when it asks for a class code, you put in that UFC thing at the bottom. And then you will log in and you can go to assignments and you can do that assignment and just choose any student. I have that random selection of, and if anyone's paying attention, you'll notice a lot of them are Simpsons characters because, you know, I'm 12 years old. And you can do that. Cool.
And Bono.
Say again? And
I
Bono,
said,
yeah. I really like U2. So there's certain, you know, I didn't feel like putting the edge in there because I felt like, you know, when I use this for PD, somebody might be like, what's the edge?
Fair enough.
He plays the blues, man. That's who Edge is.
How did Edge play the blues?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I have to have my own little, like, you know, I'm enough of a lunatic that I have to have my own little inside jokes for myself. And like,
that's fine. One of my student models has Paul Hewson on the top of it. And they're like, who's Paul Hewson? Like, it's Bono. Who's Bono? Oh, geez.
Right. Is that the UN guy with the pink glasses? Yeah, it's fine. Look, that's who he is. You know. All right. Did everyone get in?
Wait, Chris.
Not yet. I have to sign out first.
So wait, how do I sign in?
So you middle school folks would go on a web browser, seesaw.me, like on your laptop, and then there'll be 3 choices, and it'll say like I'm a admin, I'm a teacher, I'm a student. You'd say I'm a student, and it'll say like scan or enter class code, and it'll say text code will be one of your options, and then you'll type in that text code. And what I'll do is I'll copy this, and what I'll do is I'll actually put it in the chat.
Chris, do I need an app to scan the QR code?
No, you should in Seesaw. If you just log into Seesaw, okay, if you log in, so like Sarah, if you're in Seesaw as a teacher, you would sign out of Seesaw.
Okay.
And then it'll show up with I'm a teacher or I'm a student. You'll click I'm a student.
Okay.
And then you would, because I got rid of the QR code, you don't see it. Underneath the QR scanner, there's a place where you can enter a text code.
Gotcha.
And then I just put the text code in the chat.
Okay.
Took me forever to figure out how to sign out of Seesaw. I forgot all about that.
Cool.
Okay, welcome.
And then when you go in as a student, and this is like you're seeing what the students see, there's the right-hand side, you have the journal and you have activities and you have inbox. And as a teacher, you could even send messages to the kids. So that inbox is like the announcement. So as a teacher, K1, 2, you could use that essentially as email. Since K1 and 2 don't have email, that would be a place where you could sort of communicate with them. I realize that with sort of kindergarten, you may put the message in there knowing that the parents are going to be the ones reading it to them. You know, second grade, they may be more independent, where you can say to them, listen, I'm going to communicate with you via the Seesaw announcements inbox. And then that way, and it's a good thing because that way, not that you're keeping parents out of the loop and you're obviously going to be communicating with parents, but I think it's best to start that as much as you can, that sort of direct teacher-student communication, even at the middle school, like leveraging their email and doing stuff that way to kind of make sure, like, it's going to make them more independent. It's going to make them more in touch and in tune with the class and the work, and not relying on their parents to, oh, my parent didn't tell me I had homework. It's like, nope. Which is why third and above, we have email. And it's like, you know what? We're going to send the emails to the kids. They're going to know what their assignments are. They're going to know where to look. Zooms will be in Google Calendar, things like that. It makes it more self-contained to the student. And obviously the parent is with the student at home. The parent has access to their usernames and passwords, so the parents can see these things. It's just a matter of getting the students used to that, even though it's digital, just like you would in the classroom, you would talk to them directly. Same thing with the digital.
How do I sign out? I'm sorry. I heard
No
someone
problem.
saying
Top left-hand corner of Seesaw, you would click on your name, and then you would click the little gear and then sign out. Or depending on the version of the app, you would click on your name and then there'll be a red sign out link.
It says account settings, share Seesaw, contact support, privacy center, device. Sign out.
So when you're in the app, are you in the Seesaw app?
Yeah, I just figured it out now. Okay, so now I'm a student and then I scan the code.
Or type in the text code, and I put the text code in the chat.
Okay. Got it.
Cool.
Chris, when you create, I don't know what it's called, like a Seesaw activity, you know how you can add, how do you add the directions, like tap, mic, or add, how do you?
When you're actually in there and doing it?
Yeah, like when I'm making activities for the students, how do I add the directions?
Yeah, when you're, give me a second. That's one of those things that I figure out like once a year, and then I always forget like where it is.
Yeah, because I've made activities before, but I've never added like I just voice over the directions because I don't know how to actually do it.
Where is it? Or is it in my library? Let me edit the. Okay, so it's a little bit weird, but what it is let me go back to this, and then I'll add them to, and then I'll share my screen on this particular one. So
Does it matter that we don't, our name isn't on here?
right. So for the purpose of this class, just choose one of those random people that's in there. Your name wouldn't be on there. From a student perspective, they're actually gonna not even have to choose their name because they're signing in with their Google account. So it like is just doing a direct authentication. This Seesaw class is set up as a generic class with that sort of everyone logs in with the same code, just because I use it for training. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to show you guys something. So I'm going to do this. So, all right, Sarah. So you see the little guys right there, right? Those little icons.
Yeah.
So the way you add those is, and I'm going to run my 3 dots so I can edit, is you basically do colon and then like the word add and then colon. And then what you do is you can put that stuff around. So meaning, you know, click the button, click the drawing, oops. Add a label, record with the, like that, and then you save it.
Got it.
Same. So it's having, it's basically the 2 colons with the word in between, you know, check, like colon check will get you the check mark.
Sarah, if you, sorry to interrupt, Chris, but if you Google Seesaw cheat sheet, a lot of people have made visuals of little charts, and then you could just download and keep on your desktop to remind you. That's what I did last year.
And
right?
what's,
And
yeah. And what's really cool too is what you can do also too is if you have, like, let's say you found one in the community, like I had this one, right? So what I could actually do is I can come in here and I see all those things are there. What I can do is I can copy and edit the activity. I can't edit this because it's somebody else's, but I can make a copy that I can edit. And when I copy and edit, you see.
Right, then you see them.
Then you see them all right here. You know, see like right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you get a cheat sheet, leave it on your desktop or print it out and tack it next to your computer or whatever.
Okay.
And that's definitely something that's going to be more useful, like at the kindergarten level. 2nd grade level, you're probably going to be able to not, I mean, they're still useful. They're not bad to use, but obviously with the age, you know, if you're still using it in 3rd or 4th grade, you don't necessarily need to have those icons there necessarily, because you can almost use the directions as part of like the literacy component. Like it's reading directions. That's a technical skill. That's a genre. Essentially, it's an instruction manual. It's directions. So you can have them, but they're great that they're available. We'll just get rid of that because I don't need that.
Right, and Chris, couldn't you, like for kids who needed that, like you can differentiate who you hand out to, I believe, like you don't have to give the whole class the same assignment.
Correct.
So if some kids needed more specific directions, you could, I don't remember exactly how to do it. I think it's in the class list. You choose who you give it out to.
Yes. So when you are going to assign, oops, I'm not sharing. Let me share.
Because I know there were some kids like last year for 3rd grade, we used Seesaw a lot. And I kind of remember doing that with some kids because they were even handing their assignments in different ways, like what was required of them. They could do the almost all voiceover as opposed to other kids who were doing more writing.
Right. So you can do, like in here, I just assigned it to like the whole class, right? That just assigned to one class, but you can edit students, folders, and skills. So what you can say is like, yeah, I'm not going to assign it to all the kids. I'm only going to assign it to Bart and Bono, you know? You can also say, I'm going to put it in, the music folder. So you can tweak that individually. So yeah, definitely. You don't have to push it out to the entire class. You could have versions of the same, which is nice because when you do come in here and you do go to this, everything will always have a copy and edit. So you can make a copy, like 3 copies of the same assignment with slightly different directions or slightly different expectations, and then assign them. When you go to the assign, you just don't assign it to the class, you edit the students. And then that way you could assign, your early readers one version, your sort of emerging readers another version, and
I feel like it's all coming back.
Yep. And that's the thing with a lot of this stuff is like just sort of poking around and playing around. And one of the nice things about Seesaw, but this goes for anything, is like there's a demo student. Like you can like use yourself, like practice with these things, play around with them. And then for teachers, at least in the elementary level, the middle school is different. Elementary, you guys have access to your students' usernames and passwords. So you can even like log in as them and test something out or see how it looks from their perspective. Middle school, I don't believe you have the same access to their stuff.
We do not.
Yeah.
No, but we do have sandboxes set up in our Schoology.
Okay.
Like I test things out in my sandbox.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's key.
Schoology.
Yeah.
And that's perfect. Yeah. And like, so one of the sandbox that we use is basically we just have access to the kids' content or usernames and stuff because they're also like 8. So that way we can like, double check things and troubleshoot, but that's also, occasionally we'll just log in as a kid, like an incognito, and we'll be like, oh yeah, it looks good, log out, and then that way we ensure that when they get the content, that it looks to them the way we want it to look to them.
Yeah, we can also through Schoology go in as a student and see what it looks like to them, which is good. And we can go on to other teachers' pages as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's what's different about sort of one of those that's a legit learning management system. We're sort of cobbling together a couple of apps that we kind of fake as learning management systems at the elementary level, but a lot of that really has to do just with their age and, reading abilities and things like that. Trying to be consistent sort of.
Yeah.
K2
I mean, Schoology can be a little clunky. Like sometimes it doesn't accept videos, and you have to have a workaround.
Yeah, so like with videos, I always recommend if it's video, put it on YouTube. Put it on YouTube. That's give out the link, because it's one of those things where especially this goes no matter what, right? This is always my philosophy beforehand, but it's even more critical now. Use the apps that were designed for the thing when you want to do the thing. So what that means is, like during the whole shutdown last spring, there was lots of discussion about how do we communicate with students. And it was like, well, we could use Google Docs and we could comment, or there's like a chat feature in Google Classroom. And I was like, well, but we have Gmail. Like, why not use the communication app for communication? Same thing with like the specials and the Zoom schedules. It was like, how do we Zoom, or how do we make sure the kids, it was like Google Calendar. Like we literally have a calendar tool that does that. Like we'll use that purpose. So same thing with video. There was always a thing about like, where do I put videos to make sure kids can see it? It's like YouTube. YouTube is a video hosting and streaming platform. Put your videos there, and then it's a link, and that link works everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that was amazing to find out that we had YouTube channel. I didn't even know I had it until the shutdown.
Yeah, I mean, everyone technically has one because it's sort of tied to Google. It's just a matter of activating it and populating it with content. But the thing is, like, you post stuff there, YouTube is universal. So like, yes, this year, everyone is using a district device. So hopefully a lot of the pitfalls and troubles of last year will be different, because like in 8th grade last year, I'm sure you had some kids who were on Chromebooks or mom's laptop or dad's iMac or a Windows machine. There's issues. Something like YouTube is universal enough that like it exists. It's easy to access anywhere. So that's why definitely with videos, but I always recommend posting to YouTube. And Jen put some good links to the icon shortcuts in the chat. So we'll make sure that we don't delete the chat before everyone do it. Cool. Now, one thing I will show you too about Seesaw, and this is just, and then we'll kind of move on to a more universal K-8 app, is, let me share my screen. So, whoops, sharing the wrong one. This is what happens when you have multiple browsers and tabs and apps running. This is also why generally what I always say is share. A lot of times people will, when they share Zoom, they'll just share the particular web page that they're using. They won't share the desktop. I generally recommend, especially as teachers, if you're doing virtual stuff or like live synchronous things, share your desktop, make sure it's clean or whatever, but that way you can toggle between apps and the screen sharing will hold. Otherwise, if you only share that window or that app, when you go to switch to another one, the screen sharing doesn't switch with it. But so one thing that's cool too is, like if I want to post student work, I can upload things and I can bring stuff in from photos, which is nice. So if there's things already existing on your computer or on your iPad, you know, things you took earlier, and this is also good in terms of continuation and sort of continuity of things. So like a K1-2, if you start out with a simple assignment of like take a photo and use markup with it, you eventually can then repurpose that content and upload it because it's on the device. And they don't need Seesaw. So again, if kids are at home with their iPads, you could send them out to take a photo where they don't need internet for it. They don't need to be connected to Seesaw, but then Seesaw can import from their camera roll. But you can also bring in stuff from Drive. So I guess I gotta do this. And what we should probably do is while I'm typing in my password, not broadcast it.
I was just getting ready to write it down.
Well, that's always the thing, right? Everyone worries about like the spam and the hacking and all that stuff. It'd be horrible if like the tech teacher broadcast his password.
Especially with Active Directory, you can get everywhere now.
Yeah. Well, that's actually why for some of the things, us computer teachers actually have two accounts. We have our teacher one, which has certain privileges, but then we actually also have a secondary administrator account that we have, which is a different username and password to hopefully mitigate potential issues like that. But anyway, so like I could bring in like anything. So I don't know, let's say kindergarten resource guide, right? So I could bring this in and I could bring in this PDF. So now I have this PDF in the Seesaw and it's broken it out by pages. So this is a way where like second grade, once you get them comfortable with Drive, you can put things into Drive and then they can actually come over here and you could say, all right, I want you to highlight something. Then they could turn it in, you know? And that's a way where you can use Seesaw to edit and annotate PDFs. What's also cool, and I'll just trash this, is you could bring in, we'll do the kindergarten resource guide again.
Can they submit multiply in case they accidentally hit check?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can do it. And then like this is, if you notice, this is a Google slideshow. So it brings it in the different pages and then they can still mark it up, you know, if they want to. And then, yeah, look, what will happen is, so if the student submits, one of the benefits is they'll submit, let's say they submit twice, right? And one's a mistake. They could use that inbox and then they could send a message to the teacher saying, hey, listen, there's two of them, but the first one I made a mistake, you know? And then as a teacher, what you're going to look for is you're going to, you know, come over to the journal and at the bottom, the teacher see this thing about unapproved posts. So we can review, you know, and I can see that these are things. Now, what's really nice from a teacher standpoint is that if you assign an activity, I can say, hey, listen, Bart went nuts. So there's a send back button. So I could actually turn that back to Bart and be like, listen, Bart, you need to scale it back and follow the, whatever. Now, I obviously didn't give good enough directions. I said, mark this up. So that also goes to prove the point that when you're doing things, you need to be very explicit with the instructions for the kids, especially in this sort of hybrid model where they may not be, you may show it to them during the in-person portion, but they may not do it until later. And they're like, wait, what'd she say? What'd he say? What happened? Those directions should really be explicit in terms of writing. And that's why the audio instructions are good, because you can sort of reinforce what needs to be done. And then if it's good, I would just click approve, the approve button, and then it would go up. I could also delete it. So if somebody submits something twice and it wasn't supposed to be there, I can delete the first one. Or if a student did one that was inappropriate or completely off task or whatever it is, you can just straight up trash it. For the most part, sending back is good because that's that feedback component. So K1-2, you know, we want to know, all right, how do we turn work in? We're in this hybrid model. You know, how does a kindergartner submit work? You know, no paper. We're not putting stuff in mailboxes and walking around. So, all right, send it back. And then they'll get a notification that it got sent back. And then obviously they'll be at home. So their parents or caregivers will help them sort of understand what your comments were or what your feedback was for it. And then they'll get a little notification in that inbox. Now, what they'll have to do too is this, a part of this is about training. So just as you would train the students about how to enter your classroom, work, you know, walk, flow around the classroom, how your schedule is set up, things like that. This year, a lot of the training is going to be, the in-person training is going to be about these online tools. So I would imagine with the middle school, a lot of it's going to be, hey, listen, I know you guys have had these iPads for 2 years, but here's how we're going to use them in this class. You know, here's how we're using them in 8th grade. And I think, be honest with them, like, here's how we're using them this year because of the situation we're in, which may be different than 2 years ago when you were 6th graders and it was a totally normal school year. You know, I'm sure the kids will, you know, they're totally into this sort of stuff. Like, they're very flexible and resilient and they adapt really well. But I think it's very important to teach them the class expectations and class sort of flow digitally, just as you might go through the rules and routines of your classroom in person. Sort of what are the aspects of the different apps you're using to get through. And then what's cool too is you can actually like leave comments. You can do you notice there's a private notes, so you can actually send a private note. You can record the private note back to the student, which is really nice, especially in those lower grades. So you can return it and say, hey, listen, you know, I really want you to try something different, or, you know, you put too much on the left and you should have more on the right. Whatever it may be, this is great because you can give them that, not just text-based feedback, but that audio feedback as well. And then,
how are comments different from a private note?
Comment will appear with it. So like if I were to publish it, and if I were to go like back to this journal, you see how I have all these things in this journal that have been approved that all the kids can see. The kids would then see, the comment would be then public. Like, great job or excellent work, you know, that would be public. The private note is a little bit of that feedback to the students. And what you can do too is you can set up, if you don't necessarily want to have every kid see all this stuff, what you do is one of the options is the blog. And what the blog is that little sort of globe on the right-hand side. The blog is essentially published pieces. So Seesaw, everything can be submitted, teacher can approve it, nobody sees it but the teacher and the student, you can send stuff back. But then on any given post, there's this sort of little globe, and that means add this post to the blog. And then you can make that blog public, which is great because then you can sort of pick and choose which things you want to post. Can get a little bit hinky in terms of then you have to think about your class and managing expectations. You know, is every child going to get something published to the blog, or is it going to be one a week? You know, what's that sort of expectation of why and how are things being published? So just be aware of that. I would say for the start off, something like this, September, brand new model of teaching and learning and all this stuff. No blog, keep everything just between teacher and student and let it just be, you know, just in that one direction. Cool. All right. Any questions about that stuff? Everyone good? All right. So, and yes, Jen put in the chat, you can make the blog password protected so that only certain people, like you give that password out to just students, teachers, parents. What's cool too with the blog is you can, like, if you wanted to, you could set up buddy classes. So you can basically give that password out to a class in another building or another grade level, and then the kids can look at each other's work and comment back and forth and things of that nature. Cool. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to switch gears a little bit and to something that hopefully everyone has on their iPad because it's a built-in one. And we're going to do a little iMovie because iMovie is theoretically on every iPad. It's simple and it's easy to use, and it can give that sort of verbal feedback and visual feedback as instead of just text-based feedback, which is a special help for the lower grade kids. Middle school kids, it becomes a much more creative outlet for their content, you know, especially if you have maybe some struggling writers where you may have a situation where it's an essay or something like that, or a report where that's traditionally typed. Maybe it might be the situation of like, you know what, if that's like, maybe you just scribble it on Post-it notes, make me a movie and tell me about this. And then it could be a simple sort of task like that. So let us do a little iMovie. So, and as a slight aside, I sort of jumped past this, but on the iPad, if you just swipe down anywhere just on the desktop area, you get the search bar, and then you could search, you know, for the apps just by, you know, typing in a letter, right? And then if you're on the front page, you could swipe the other direction. You'll sort of get like, you know, some brief things, some recently used apps, things like that. Those are just some quick shortcuts. But so if I go to iMovie, iMovie opens up and it's fairly straightforward, right? You can create a project, giant plus button. Now, the two options, movie and trailer. I'll show you a trailer, but trailer is, I'm not a huge fan of the trailers because trailers aren't so much individual creativity. I view them more as like a digital worksheet, because if you tap on trailer, you choose the style of the trailer that you want. And then I will go to, here, let's go to retro. Oops, wrong button, retro. And I'll click create. Now what it's doing is it's giving me the layout. And it's basically asking me to fill in the information and fill in the pieces. So a lot of times people will use this and be like, oh, I made an iMovie. It's like, well, you filled in it's like Mad Libs, right? The old Mad Libs, like put in a noun, put in an adjective, and they're like, oh, I made the story. It's like, nah, it sort of did. You just followed the script, right? You laid it out. But you can do that and say, all right, the movie name, we're gonna change the movie name from, we'll call it The Ultimate STI. Right, and then who's the cast, and we'll say I don't even know why that's in there. Oh, I know why that's in there. Sorry, this one has those little the shapes in the back. So if you were to change that to female, the silhouette, the different templates have different little features like that can be customized. We'll call this, you know, Scarsdale Films. And you can tweak the colors and the style. Problem with this that I don't like is then it actually then starts to take away from like the template and the theme, right? Like if this is sort of that theme, like then, you know, to have these other features in there, it gets a little bit funky. And then the credits, right? So me, whatever. So then the storyboard is literally going through like this, where they actually, now it's not horrible, right? So they can, in earlier grades working through like structure of a story, this can be fine. I don't view filling this out as like making an iMovie. This is more about just like populating your script that you're writing into like this template that they give you. Because then what happens is when you actually go to play it, I didn't change anything. Medium means like the medium shot. And that's all it's doing. So like the student isn't actually doing the animations. They're not cutting anything together. They're not editing the film. They're just editing text, and they're just sort of filling out the script. Again, this could be fine. Let's say introduction, first grade, second grade. You know, I would think that by 8th grade, the kids are probably know how to do this. And this is sort of baseline. I would push upper grades, 3rd through 8th, to make an actual movie. And I'll show you what that is in a second, because this is cool. But again, like I just typed some words. I didn't really interact with the program. Does that make sense? Is everyone familiar with the trailers? Have people used them in the past?
I haven't used them. I've used iMovie, but not the trailers.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I don't even see iMovie on this iPad.
Yeah.
I'm clicking on iPad and it just, iMovie, it just says create project, and I can go into my videos, but I don't see all the full, you know.
So when you're in iMovie, do you not have this new project option?
No, it says create project.
So
Click on that.
create a project, and then your version may be a little bit different. And
It
then
has movie or trailer, new project, movie or
movie.
yeah, and then what?
And then it should take you to something that looks like this on my
Okay.
screen, where you have a bunch of clips.
Yeah.
Now, what we can do is you can select a bunch of clips that you like have. Like, let's say I wanted to choose all the ones from this course, right? These are all those pictures I've taken. I can select those. Those are my camera roll. On the left-hand side, you'll notice too that it actually has like videos and photos, so you can pull other media from your device, and I'll create the movie. Now, all this did was stuck these clips in order.
But where were those selections that you had initially? You know, the style.
The which one?
In the beginning, you know, you had options of the style of your movie.
That was the trailer. That wasn't a movie. That was the trailer. No, that's fine. That was the trailer. And then that's basically just giving you that like templated worksheet to kind of fill out. And that's making the trailer, which, you know, you play around with. And I'm going to, once we go through this, the trailer, the reason why I'm not spending a ton of time on the trailer is that like, they are not much more complicated than literally following the steps and the boxes. It's movie by numbers, you know, like sort of paint by numbers.
But does it give you those interesting graphics?
They do, but the difference with them is they're the ones that iMovie gives you. Like you're basically just filling in like the textual construct of it. You can do some tweaks to it, but I prefer the actual movie, because in this way the students use all their own content in all their own way. Like they're laying out their story how they want to lay it out. They're using their self-created videos and things of that nature. And then it's more personalized, and it's really a creative start to finish thing. A lot of the, like in the trailer, like those animations and things, that's, you know, being given to them. Oh, I thought so. So like I have these, and what I can do is I have these pictures, and if I, oops, wrong device. So if I click on this picture, when you hit play, you'll notice it has this motion, right? This motion is called the Ken Burns effect. Ken Burns is an amazing documentarian who basically makes 19-hour-long movies that are amazing with nothing but still photos. The way he's able to make these epic tomes is by moving the camera along the photo to give the photos some action and some life. And he really pioneered that aspect. So iMovie probably pays him a pretty penny to do that. Now, what you can do is you can just turn the Ken Burns off by like tapping Ken Burns enabled, and then it's just the picture doesn't move, and that's fine. You can also turn it on, and then you'll notice it says pinch to position the start. So what I can do is I can like decide that I'm going to start there, and then it sort of moves that way. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say pinch to position end. I don't know, go into my ear. So then what'll happen is now, because I changed the position, now it zooms in on that one particular place. So you can tweak where it goes. The speed at which it goes depends on how long the clip is. So this clip is like 4 seconds. So if I wanted to make it longer, it'll slow down that animation. I tap on it and I got that little yellow bar. What I can do is I can drag that bar out longer. And then what that's going to do is that's just going to slow down, and it's going to extend that motion across the longer clip. So then I've got this one. Now, what we can do is, let's say I want to add something. I've decided that, you know what, I have all these, but I need to add a photo. You can just click moments, and then let's add this one. Yep, and we'll click the little plus, and it drops it in. So now there's this other random super flattering photo of myself. So that's in there. If you also had audio in there, you could have like soundtracks or stuff in your My Music. You can add sound effects. So I don't know, let's do an applause. I can add an applause. Now you notice it puts it on a different track, because the audio track is below the video track, but I can pick this up and I can move it, but I can't because there's technically audio associated with the prior stuff. So it does, even though it doesn't show you audio that's necessarily connected with those other clips, there's audio there. So let me see if I have a video I can put in so I can show you how it.
Mine is like cutting off a lot of my visual, my picture. It's just showing, it's going really slowly. And
so that's the Ken Burns effect. What you can do is you can turn that Ken Burns effect off.
Where is that? I don't see it.
So when you tap on the image,
okay.
If you look in the bottom right corner of the image, it'll say pinch to position the beginning, pinch to position the end, and then Ken Burns enabled. If you tap on that, it'll turn Ken Burns off.
Yeah, I don't have that. Yeah.
Which is weird because that's where it should be. Make sure you've selected the image in the track so that the image is highlighted in yellow.
Okay. It's highlighted in yellow. Yes, I found it.
You found it?
Okay, Ken Burns disabled.
So like Jen asked a good question in the chat about iMovie versus WeVideo. So I prefer WeVideo because I think WeVideo is a little bit more robust. However, on an iPad, you don't have WeVideo as an option. iMovie is the option. WeVideo is web browser based and it won't run on an iPad. So WeVideo is basically Chromebook users or Mac users, but we don't really have those. In our context, we have K2 iPad users, 6 to 8 iPad users, and 3 to 5 Chromebook users. So the WeVideo is really for that 3rd through 5th gap at this point. And so that's the difference. Now, there are pluses and minuses to both. So I think WeVideo is a little bit more powerful and a little bit more robust, but it also runs in the browser. So you're reliant on internet connection, internet speed, and things of that nature. iMovie exists solely within the iPad. So it's more self-contained. You don't rely on internet for it. Plus, what's nice about the iPad and iMovie is that you have your camera right there. You have your video camera right there. You know, the device is all inclusive. Photography, video recording, editing. WeVideo, you have to source your content somewhere else and like put it into Google Drive and then open up WeVideo and bring stuff in. So it's a bit of a different dynamic. I think if you're working within just the iPad environment, I think iMovie is great because it gives you what you need without having to go to a secondary source. But I prefer, and I like WeVideo so much that like on my laptop, for anything more than just simple edits, I'll use WeVideo. On my laptop, the only thing I use iMovie for is basically like putting like a front and a back, like a title slide and a credit slide on a pre-existing clip. But if I want to really mix and match and edit and do like crazy tweaking to something, I'll use WeVideo. But that's also because partly possibly because I'm a bit of a dork in that way. And I sort of came up in video editing and content creation that I want a little bit more fine-tune adjustments, and I think WeVideo gives that. But I love iMovie on the iPad. I actually prefer iMovie on the iPad to iMovie on my laptop. So you have those different things in there. Now, what you could also do too is, so when we're doing this, you can decide like if you need to take a photo, you could add a photo. Or I can add a video. We'll just do a little like this. And this is going to record directly into, so I'll use it. It's going to drop it directly in. Now it drops it at the beginning because that's where my playhead was. That white line is the playhead. It's basically telling me where I'm about to start playing from. So if I hit the play button now, it's going to play to the right. If I add something, it's going to add it to the left of that playhead. And I have this video. Now I can say, you know what? I screwed up and I really wanted to start there. I don't want that junk at the beginning. I tap on it and I take the left side yellow and I just drag it down to a point where, and you'll notice it's showing me what I'm clipping off. So then I wait until I get to a point where it's, there we go. That's what I want. So now when I play it, it starts on that left to right sweeping motion. You can do transitions or those little triangles in between the two clips. So if you tap on it, you can decide that we're going to do, I don't know, like a little dip like that, or you could do a dissolve, a slide is like this, right? So there are some features along that bottom where you can change. You could also make it longer, meaning that it takes longer for the slide to happen. So it gives you some of those editing abilities. What you can also do is you can, I'll come over here. On this, like if there was some reason why you didn't want to hear the audio that was associated with this video, what you could do is you can take the volume on this and drop the volume all the way down to 0 if you wanted to. So then that way you don't hear it. Or what you can do is you can detach audio. When you detach audio, what that means is it separates it from the video component, which is why now you see it. And then you could, come in and you could tap on that and you could delete just that audio. So now the audio is completely removed from that video clip, which is good because if there's a video that has audio attached that you don't need, it's just extra data and it's extra weight to it. So you can delete the audio if it doesn't need to be there. What you can also do is you can do speed, which is fun. This is just for like the videos. So you can speed it up. Which makes the clip go shorter, or alternately, you can slow it down. It'll make the clip longer. Now it's a little bit choppy right now, but that's because we're basically in preview. What'll happen is when we're finished with it, it'll take a while to save and process because what it's doing is it's smoothing out all of those little hinks. Let me bring it back to normal. Right. You can also put filters on these things, just like we saw yesterday, sort of Instagram-y style filters, so you can tweak the video, things like that. You can also put titles on top. So I can say, all right, I'm going to put this title, and it goes there. And then you just change it if you want. Title goes there. One difference with WeVideo, let's say, is WeVideo lets you really easily move the titles around the screen. iMovie doesn't let you replace the area that the titles exist. So you have to be aware of that. Oops. And then my iPad's being a little bit funky. It's not letting me actually edit the title, but you should be able to double tap on it and you should be able to change what it says. I don't know why my iPad's being a little bit, probably gonna clean the screen. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of those different things in there. And then you can tweak it a little bit, like this particular one. If you look way at the bottom, it has center and lower. So some of these you can move them around a little bit based on the particular thing that they have. See, that one goes down lower there. So you can play around with those. What you can also do is you can add images. Talked about this, but the thing that this doesn't have that you're going to look for in like iMovie on the desktop or WeVideo are like solid colors or solid backgrounds, right? So you don't have those. So if I wanted just to start with, let's say, a title slide, like just a color, like Scarsdale colors, one thing I can do is I can go to Keynote. And I've done this in the past for different projects on my other iPad. And let's say I have, I'll still use this one from yesterday. We'll edit this. I'm going to add a slide, but I'm just going to do this. And we'll call it, STI iMovie demo. And I'm going to make another one, but I'm going to make it a blank one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the background to be, I don't know, let's call it maroon. So I have a couple of different sort of solid images that I want. What I then can do is I can take this. This is one of those, remember I said yesterday about screenshots, but one easy way to do it is then just go in play mode and just screenshot just that blank background. That works especially well just for the blank ones. And then in here, in a moment, and then it'll take a minute, but there it is. Then what I can do is I can add that and put that in. But I can take the Ken Burns effect off. I don't know why it's not letting me. Yeah, I think my iPad needs an update. In theory, I would take the Ken Burns effect off and I could then even pinch and zoom it. Oh, I know what, actions. So I'm going to take the Ken Burns effect off. Now, one of the problems with this, and this goes with the screenshot, is you notice that there's that black bar across it. Because I did a screenshot, it actually took the whole screen, including the extra stuff. So you'd actually have to either crop it to get a better version of it, or what you can do is, see that you get like the black, the letter boxing. Screenshot, that's an issue with the screenshots, is it takes everything you see on the screen, so not just the images. So sometimes people will be like, why is there like a Gmail notification in my picture? I'm like, because you took a screenshot right when your Gmail notification was popping up. So what you can do is, you can, and it used to be, I got to see, honestly, I haven't done this in here in a while, but yeah, you can export images. And then the slide range, let's say I didn't want to do all of them. Let's say I just wanted to do 6 and 7. I'm going to do 6 to 7, high quality. I'm going to export. And I'm just going to save 2 images. So now when I come back over here, now you can even see in my media, if you look at that very first red slide, you see how it covers the whole screen. But that third image has those black bars on it, because that third one, that's the one that I did a screenshot of. So I caught everything that was on my screen, not just what I wanted. So with this, I'm just going to trash this one, and I'm going to bring this one down instead. And then now that covers the entire screen because I exported it out as an image. I didn't take a screenshot. So again, that's why like screenshots can actually cause you more trouble than if you just go create the image natively. And then now what I can do too is if I wanted this here, whoops, I can put the title on top of it. And then I can, I don't know why it's just not working I don't know why my thing is being funky. Probably have to restart. But then I could edit the title and then I could have sort of a title and then my movie. And then I could do the same thing at the end if I wanted to. And if I wanted to get rid of her smiling at the camera, I could drag that back, take this, and I could drop that at the end. What I could also do is over here, I can slide back. And let's say after that, I wanted it to have this. I just put my playhead right there and I drop that in. And then again, I can tap on this and actions and I can disable Ken Burns. And then I would just have just that slide. So you can mix and match between Keynote and iMovie to create something different. So now what we're going to do is, well, first, any questions about iMovie before I send you on your way?
What does the Ken Burns do again?
Ken Burns is that like motion animation that goes across that like just moves it across. Now what I'll do is I know Sarah, I think so Nancy, if you don't have iMovie, I don't
either. So Janie posted in the chat that if you go into the app portal, at least for the middle school ones, we don't have that. Sarah, I'll push out iMovie to you.
Okay, I mean, I have it on my computer.
I would use the iPad because the computer version is a little bit different and things are better. Different. It just looks a little bit different. But honestly, like if I'm on my iPad, I use iMovie, and if I'm on my computer, I use WeVideo. Because if I'm going to be on my computer, I think WeVideo is much better. So that's why I like iMovie on the iPad. Plus, also I like iMovie on the iPad because it's so self-contained. I can like take some quick pictures and cut them together. But what I'll do is I will push out that I will try to get iMovie installed. You're Edgewood 2 or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah. Do you want me to send it to you?
Nope, I have it. I'll take care of it. So what we're going to have you guys do now is focus on iMovie. What I want you to do, and I know Sarah, I'm going to get it out to you, is I want you, even though I'm not a fan of the trailers, it doesn't mean that you as a individual have your own opinions, which are totally fine, even if I disagree with them. Just kidding. But also your kids, you might find it valuable for your students. So what I want you to do is, and you can reuse the content, the same images that we were using yesterday for those other things, you can reuse those pictures, create a story, create a movie, create a trailer, use the trailer, make a trailer just so you can kind of go through and see the different themes and see how it's sort of like a fill in the blank sort of workbook thing, which again, from a creative standpoint, I'm not a huge fan of, but you may notice value where the students that may speak to certain students or that may speak to certain assignments that you're doing. Fine, roll with that. But then also repurpose those same images and that same idea and make an actual straight up movie. Oh, and the last thing I'll show you is, and I forgot to show you this because this is super important. Oops. Is if I share this, no, that's not, this is this. So you can record, there's a microphone in the bottom left, so you can actually record narration. So you can record your voice over top of it. And that's where it's really helpful because you can explain things to students. You can have students create a simple movie to explain stuff to you. Maybe that student that has difficulty getting their thoughts to paper, maybe you say, listen, if you have like 5 pictures of those artifacts or whatever it may be, toss them in iMovie. Doesn't have to be crazy fancy. I don't need a lot of titles. Put them in iMovie and then talk over them and explain them to me. And that's a way you can affect that result. Then when you're done, oops, canceled. So then the way it works then when you're finished is, let me just make sure there's nothing else I wanted to show you that's pivotal. That gear, you can change filters and stuff. You can also put a soundtrack on it. Fade in and out of black. Basic settings, it's not a ton, it's not super fancy, but that's what those are. Then when you say done, it comes back here and it saves it. So you can actually then rename it just by tapping on My Movie. you know, and it's in the iPad. That's all. That's the only place it is right now. To then get it out. And one of the things I really like about iMovie is that when you do this and when you do the little share, you can just save it to your camera roll. And then it's on your camera roll as a self-contained movie that you can stick in Drive or Schoology or wherever. You can AirPlay it to the screen in the classroom, or you can do it to Drive. Now, one thing I recommend is save it to the camera roll before trying to upload it to Drive. Because when you try to upload directly to Drive, and especially if we're dealing with like kids at home possibly doing this, is that iMovie, the device is connected to your Wi-Fi. iMovie is trying to process the video and process it directly to Drive all at the same time. It may take longer, it may be slower. If you just save it straight to your camera roll, which is save video, it's not using like the internet to process this. It's just using the device, it's saving it, then it's done. That way, if it's a big, long project that may take a while to upload to Drive, they can save it out to their camera roll, and then like at night before they go to bed, they could then go to Drive and upload it to Drive from their camera roll and let it like upload overnight or something like that. Does that make sense? So I recommend save these videos when you're done. Just save them to your camera roll so you have them, because then you can disseminate them to various places easily. Cool. So what I'm going to do is we're going to say, so it's like 10:45. We're going to say at least an hour for this. So let's say 11:45, we'll check back in, because you're basically making 2 videos. So we might need more than an hour. And if you don't want to reuse those pictures from yesterday, fine. You want to take some new pictures, just like tell a story, thinking about how you might use this to teach something to your kids, or how you might get your kids to give you feedback. Make 1 trailer, make 1 movie, but make them with the same content. So that way you can see the difference between like the movie creative flexibility versus sort of the rigorous structure and rigid structure of the trailer. Cool. And then while we're doing this, Sarah, I'm going to push out iMovie to you and see if it works. All right. So go forth. I'll see you in an hour. I'll keep the chat. I'll keep this open. If you want to jump off of this to go work and then sign back in an hour, that's fine. And I'll be popping in and out. Cool. All right. I will pause. All right. So welcome back. I know people ran into some issues, right? Which is fine. This is why we do this. A couple quick points that I'm sure you guys have noticed is that there are things missing from iMovie on the iPad that aren't on the desktop computer, right? And that's intentional because it's an iPad app, so they try to make it lightweight. And if you add all the curtains and all the maps and all that stuff, it becomes a much larger, heavier app that takes up more space on the device. So they tried to kind of streamline it and just give you the core details. That is also why you use things like Keynote to bring in the backgrounds, or just those like solid colors. You know, you can use other apps to leverage their strengths for the things that the iPad is, or that iMovie on the iPad may be missing. Now, related to that, and I'll share the screen, is anything, make sure I'm connected, yep. So when you're working on this, and when you're in this demo, I'm going to click edit, and you want to bring something in, it only pulls really from your camera roll. It does have that files option on the bottom, and files is a relatively new component of the like iOS ecosystem, where there's like a folder where you can actually like save files, where it's not just in an app, but it's like in a file. Like Files is sort of its own app. The point is, you could bring in any picture or video from any other app, as long as that app can save that picture or video to your camera roll or to files. So you may have something that you made in a different app, like Chatterpix or Toontastic or something like that, that looks great, but you want to add other pieces to it, you could save that to your camera roll, excuse me, and then bring that into iMovie. So what we'll do is, as a quick example, is I will just take something simple like, so Wixie. Wixie is an app that we use K1 and 2, and it is geared towards, I'll stop this real quick. And it's a drawing program, but what's cool about it is, since it's an iPad app, you can download these things to your camera roll. And that's really the key, is that it downloads to camera roll. So I have a whole bunch of these projects, right? So I'll make a new one, the new landscape project, and I'll call it, STI demo. And I don't know, we'll put a big square, a big circle, big triangle, right? So now that is my picture. And so I have this STI demo. So what I can do is I can share this, and this one, oh wait, it's not there. It's under, love how all these different apps put it in different places. Is it print and then, no, not print. I apologize. It's in here somewhere. Again, this is what happens when you do these things infrequently. That's not it. That's the log out. Not what I wanted. All right, please hold. I will edit this out from the, all right, so if I come in here, file, download. So in Wixie, it's file, download. It's not share or it's not export. Every app is a little bit different in terms of where they do these things. And that's why it's always like kind of that remembering, the recall process of when you're in one. So I'll do images. Now this is an example of, if you're using Wixie K1 and 2, you can actually do the PNG with no background. That's that transparency. So I'll just do that. I'll just download that. So then now, if I go to my photos, I'm going to see that down here. I just added that to my photos. So then what I can do is, when I come into iMovie, I can decide that, I don't know, I'm going to drop that like right in there. So I can go to photos, and there it is, my recent thing. I'm going to use the little plus button, and it drops it right where my playhead was on my timeline. So I can create things in other apps that are on my iPad, and as long as I'm able to download that to the camera roll, I can then import that into iMovie on the iPad to create it. Cool. Which again is why there are no solid color backgrounds for iMovie. So that's why I use Keynote, and I'll create either a solid background slide in Keynote and then save it as an image, or I'll create something like a title slide that I prefer. If I don't like the way the titles look or the texture or whatever it is, I can create that in Keynote on the iPad, and then I can save that and then put it into iMovie. Now, obviously, depending on the age of kids, depending on the difficulty of project, this may be too many technical steps, but it's sort of showing you the possibilities, but also the pitfalls of those possibilities, and that for every time you're kind of mixing apps together, you're adding layers of complexity. So that it's about, all right, if I want a student to do a simple iMovie, maybe I don't worry about a title slide. Maybe I don't worry about the graphics. Maybe I just want them to speak and to narrate over a couple of images, and maybe that's enough. So again, it's about your particular sort of student comfort level or student experience level, grade level, whatever it might be. Any questions about that, about bringing in stuff from other places? Oh, good. So then two things. One is when you go to save it and you go to save the video, you get all these options. Now, for our purposes, it doesn't really matter what we're doing because we're sort of just practicing this. But when you're going to save this out for the final thing that we do, for the final thing that I make you make, you want to make it look good. However, if you're dealing with like really old bad images, the higher quality of the video, the more bad those images will look, right? So it's like good in, good out. Let's say you're taking photos of something around your house. Let's say that the assignment for the kids even is like, use your iPad to document something. So the iPad is taking really good high quality pictures. So then that can be made into a really good high quality movie. However, every level that this goes down the line, it gets to be a larger and larger and larger and larger file. It takes up more space. And then if you want to put it somewhere, it's going to take longer to put it to that place. 4K really has no purpose because our screens aren't 4K. The iPad screens that the kids have, I don't believe their models are anywhere close to 4K because their models are a few years old. Don't need it. I bring that up because some kids be like, oh, 4K, it'll be awesome. And it's like, right, but it serves no purpose. I mean, it's driving a Ferrari in midtown traffic, right? Like, it's like, yeah, it'll look really good, but it really doesn't, there's no benefit. If you're making something from other apps that are creating high quality content, if you're taking photos with the iPad that's high quality, HD, either one of those HD ones is good. You know, obviously the 1080 is gonna be a little bit better, you know, but if you were just slapping together something quick that you wanted to be super lightweight because you had to email it, then you would do smaller medium because the file size is gonna be smaller, but the quality is gonna be a little bit less. I'm going to tell you, like I said earlier, towards the end of this, how we really share all these things, any of these projects. Like YouTube would be the place for videos. YouTube can easily handle an HD 1080 video. It'll stream it, it'll look good, and it'll upload pretty quick, assuming it's not that long. We haven't talked about length of time for something like a movie. In terms of teacher-created content that you want the kids to watch, anyone want to take a guess as to sort of a recommended length of time? I'll stop that for a second. So, yes, Nancy.
Oh, I was going to say 5 minutes.
Max, I'd say 3 to 5. You want it to be short and to the point. You know, if you're illustrating a concept or something, like don't illustrate like the related concepts, like make a separate video for each of those. Like short, to the point, get it quick and get it done. 3 minutes is sort of a sweet spot, you know, of people who are like starting to pay attention and then they sort of start trailing off after that. Now, same thing for students, and potentially I would actually say less for students depending on the project. For instance, 5th grade years ago did an immigration project and there was no time limit on it. It was like tell the story. Well, one student did a 9-minute project that essentially consisted of like 6 pictures. And the student just talked and talked and talked and talked over a picture. Like one picture was up for 3 minutes and they just talked and talked and talked. I was like, okay, awesome. Super glad you're passionate about that. Very happy that you researched that. However, then there's no like literacy component to that because you didn't script it. You didn't revise it. You didn't sort of distill down what you learned and tighten it up. For the most part, what we do at the elementary level is we say, listen, if you want to convey a point, like a public service announcement type thing, 45 seconds. You can get your point across in 45 seconds if it's a single point. Like recycle, save the animals, save the earth. Done. Like you don't need more than 45 seconds for that. If you're going to do something a little bit longer form, 1.5 minutes, 3 minutes, really 5 minutes should be like a total max. And maybe that would be like 8th grade final project, but they should be editing and revising and writing a script and really putting that together to make it look good, because then that otherwise they're just going to be talking over one image for the longest period of time. So related to that, what I'm going to show you is how you can kind of think about the outlines for this. So we do a lot of video projects at Heathcote. We've used WeVideo. We used to use iMovie, but we've used WeVideo because we had more Chromebooks than anything. We've used Adobe Spark Video, which unfortunately we can't use anymore. But we used a number of things. And generally, we always use the same rough template. And the template, once I find one, will look like this. Sorry, I always forget what I call them. Every year I feel like I'm going to call them something better. Now, this is not a full-on script. Like if, you know, a filmmaker was looking at this, they'd be like, wait, that's not a script. What is that? Right, like I get that. But what we do at the elementary level is we'll have them start a Google Doc. We'll say, okay, we actually make them for any video thing. We say 1 image or 6 words. Don't try to have an image with a paragraph next to it, because then the viewer is going to have difficulty trying to figure out what to pay attention to, especially if they're listening to you do a voiceover. You know, think about like those 3 components that you're reading, you're listening, and you're seeing. So your brain's trying to process 3 things. You want to try to minimize the amount of distraction so that the brain's not trying to like listen to a narrator, read what's on the page, and pay attention to the picture all at the same time. We do this for our PSAs, our social issue PSAs. It could be environmental, it could be like social, meaning bullying, it could be, you know, wear your seatbelts, it could be sort of anything. We give them a general outline. So we can say, all right, we know that you have this great idea in your head, but kind of let's boil it down to kind of a couple of key points. So we give them this rough outline, and then they'll always say, wait, but can I start out with my call to action? It's like, yeah, sure. But then, you know, think about the flow of the story. The narrative section will say to them, you know what, this is where you just write. Like throw down whatever, your paragraph, your incomplete sentences, your whatever, like get your thoughts out of your head onto the page. Then they'll edit and revise that down, and they'll say, okay, like what's my audience going to see in that moment? What am I going to say, or what are they going to hear? Is there a narrator saying anything, or is there nothing? You know, so then that way you may want them to, it makes the students start thinking about, and this is good for teachers too, to think about, if I'm making a tutorial video that I want the kids to watch, am I making them see, listen, and read simultaneously? That might be too much for them to process. Gives them a sense of, all right, if I want to do this, like where am I having those key points? Where am I emphasizing an idea, or where am I, you know, sort of letting the audience think and sort of hold back? You know, where you may put up like a sign, and the narrator said, and the sign just is a you know, a Bigfoot. And the narrator can say like, what does this mean? And then it could be silent for a little while, because then it gives the audience a second or two to think about what that was. So a lot of times with these apps, like something like creating something like an iMovie, it's not just about the app itself. It's about a lot of the setup ahead of time to make sure that when the student is doing it and when the student is taking that information, they're not just doing a brain dump into iMovie, but they're actually setting up, going from sort of the rough outline of the idea, putting down the narrative, and then saying, all right, how am I going to actually bake this down? And we do the time on here because we use this template for a number of things. We use this same outline for even presentations, like when they stand up in front of an audience, and we say, all right, how long is like that slide going to be behind you? Like, how long are you going to talk about that point? You know, we'll tell them, listen, it always starts with 2 seconds of black. You generally want between 4 and 6 seconds of a visual before it moves on to something else. So that way they think about keeping the pacing of the video going, so that like the audience doesn't like zone out to the one image for 3 minutes. So creating something like this is also helpful. What's nice too about the iPads is you have Pages. In theory, once everything gets updated, Pages is the Apple version of Word, but there's also the Google Docs app. So you'd be able to combine the notion of creating a movie with the whole workflow process of what's your idea, what's your narrative for this movie, what's your script, and then now take that and go do it. And you can do that all self-contained on the iPad. Cool. One other thing people noticed is about the trailers. You can't delete sections from the trailers, which is why the trailers aren't so great. Because it's literally like a paint by numbers, like fill in, fill in, fill in, fill in. It's limiting.
And it is a lot of work for a minute.
Which is why I generally say if a student is going to put forth that level of work, I'd rather have them have this document where they outline their narrative and their script, even if it's rough. Use iMovie to put those pieces together, and then they're really creating something from the beginning, and they're really thinking about the whole start to finish process instead of literally just filling in a worksheet. But that's why I like to have teachers actually go through that, because a lot of times you're like, oh, but I heard about book trailers, or I read about book trailers, or trailers are awesome. It's like, well, they look flashy and splashy, but from a content standpoint, they're not really deep and meaningful, in my opinion, from a technical standpoint. Cool. Now, any other iMovie questions before we move on to the next sort of couple of things?
So I only got the trailer done. Do I need to separately do homework, or am I okay?
You're going to do a little bit of the other thing, but I'm going to give you plenty of time. Don't worry about it. There's going to be, there will be a little bit of homework, but what I want to do is I want to just make sure I cover a couple of things that you guys will probably hear about. There's not going to be too many more apps, and then we're going to go back to a lot of independent work before we finish. Because part of this I also want you guys to see is that in doing these things, what does go into them, so that when you think about, like for the kids, like we know that like if we're going to make them do a 45-second trailer and we're going to have them do that whole script and everything, that's like a 4 to 5 week project, because it's not just like, hey, save the animals, don't pollute, awesome. Like that's not what it is. Like it's a much more in-depth process that takes a lot more time than people may think requires for a 45-second video. So a lot of this course too is just getting you guys to see that like it's not just like slap together a quick iPad app and make it and it's done, but that there's often this other level of investment. But yeah, so we will definitely go back to some other stuff.
Chris, I have a quick question.
Of course, go ahead.
I know they're about to update all our iPads and stuff. Like, if anything we created over the past 2 days, we should probably save in another location, right?
So yes, you can back it up, and then right before we end today, I'll show you where to do all that and how to do like the course projects and stuff. In theory, the update shouldn't erase anything, because we're not updating, like wiping and updating, we're just updating in theory. But that is always something good to think about, and that is going to be like the last sort of like 20 minutes of this is when I show you guys how to back that up. That'll also be good for like the kids, so that when you're talking to the kids about, listen, like you're done, you made this awesome thing, like where should we put it so that way you don't lose it in case you drop your iPad in the river, you know? And then for teachers, that's definitely places like Drive and YouTube. For kids, it's more just like Drive or, you know, Schoology and stuff. It's sort of somewhat different. But we'll also talk about like why you will put things you make in different places for posterity's sake. So that way, like next year, you don't have to remake it. You just sort of direct people to that original link. Cool. All right. So yeah, go ahead.
On iMovie, I was having a lot of fun sort of putting together some of our buddy work for what could potentially be like a parent presentation or a share. I love iMovie, but I was frustrated. The text on everyone kept coming out as in white. Is there a way to change the color?
You're talking about the title text?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is, my iPad's not working, but yes, there you can. I don't know why my iPad's not working. Because I'm trying to.
Mine had. And by the way, Notability is working.
So there's, so there you go. Yeah, I'm telling you, they are. I mean, we are literally working on this iPad class in the midst of them updating all the district iPads. So we're running into some things, and I had it getting a second ago. Yeah, my iPad's just being.
I put the video in the shared folder, but I didn't see, and I kept trying to like touch things and hold it to see if something popped up regarding text color or fonts or anything like that. But
yeah, it's basically just white, And then what you can do is, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much just white. It's what they give you, which is why it's limiting, which is why, you know, you have to like leave it. Now, there may be some app updates when everything gets refreshed. I don't know off the top of my head, but yes, it is limiting in that way. Now, one other related thing in terms of showing kids how to do things is, and this is going to be tough for me to show because sometimes on Zoom and when things are connected, you don't see things. What I'm going to show is sort of related to this. So I'm going to share my iPad, and it's related to all this, and it's related to like how kids can do things. So if I swipe down from the top, I have my little note, my little like, you know, you do this from, and in theory, if everyone's updated, it's the top right-hand corner, like where the charging thing is. You just press and hold and swipe down. Depending, if you have an older version that hasn't been updated yet, you'd be like swiping up from the bottom and you would get that. There's that little circle. That little circle in the bottom right is a record button. That's a screen record button. So you can actually record what you're doing on your iPad. It doesn't work now because I'm connected to my laptop for QuickTime to do this. So sometimes you get these like conflicting issues. But what I will do is I will go super crazy and I will show you my personal iPad, sort of how it works. So like if I swipe down, I have the little record button, right? The little circle right there. That's a screen recording. So what
So
I do,
will get updated, Chris, because I don't have that.
I'll show you if you
have
don't.
more.
Right. So what? Let me back up then, actually, and I'll show you where to find that. So if it's not there by default, and I thought at one point we were forcing it out by default, what you do is when you come in and you go to the control on your settings, and you go to Control Center, you can customize the controls, and then down here you have all these controls. And what you'll do is if you see the screen recording, you'll click the plus, and it'll then add it to this top.
Okay.
If screen recording isn't there, it's because your operating system hasn't been fully updated yet, and you're running one of the older operating systems. But know
I have
that.
things on the top right. I just don't have that.
So you don't have the screen recording even in your settings.
No, I know. I've got it now. It's all set.
Okay. There was a point where we were trying to make that like a default thing, but there were like version issues. Which again, it's been a bit of a hassle, but now hopefully, because everything is sort of this year starting everything on the same spot, hopefully now we'll have a little bit more uniformity among the student devices and even teacher devices. All right, so what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna go to my camera. So if I press it, it gives me a countdown, and then it's recording. Now it's recording everything I do. So you're not going to see my hand on it, but you'll see me you'll see like the pages swipe between, right? Then I tap on that little red circle at the top and I can stop the recording. And when I open that up, now here's this movie. So when it plays, oops, sorry. See, I'm not swiping. This is the movie of me swiping. So you could open up apps and you could do a demo in an app. And then because this is saved in your camera roll, you then can, and see, it actually says, you'll see me pressing the red button. That's actually like me pressing it. And it's stopping the recording. Let me wait for the actual video. So yeah, so see, this is actually in here as a video. So now what you can do is you could use that screen recording tool to create a video about how to use an app or anything you want, put that then into iMovie and then just trim those little ends of it. So I can, if I wanted to, I can now come and I'll show you. So if I go to, let me get out of that. Let me get out of this. Let me go to iMovie. Oh, reinstalling iMovie. So apparently even my personal iPad, they must be
Maybe it's an iMovie thing.
So maybe it's an iMovie thing, and it's not. I've been blaming it on us, but maybe iMovie is in the process of a big update. But you can. But then basically, you would just put it in the and hold on a second. Sorry, my phone was ringing. So then what you do is for something like that, then once it's in your camera roll, you just would bring it in, and just like I brought in, like you would just come to video and you would bring it in. And then just like I brought this video in of that student baking, if I wanted to get rid of little bits and pieces, I just tap on the video. And if it's the beginning and end, that's the easiest. I could just tap on that yellow and I just slide it down. Oops. I tap on the yellow and I just slide it down, and then that will get rid of the beginning part of it. And then I could do the same thing at the end where I can come over here and I could shorten that clip. So if I didn't want to see those little bits of me actually pressing on the control center to click the video to record and stuff, I could just bring it to iMovie, and just trim that up. What you can also do is, if you wanted to, in the middle, let's say I messed up and in the middle there was a hiccup and I forgot what I was doing, I pressed the wrong thing, I could click on the actions, which is that scissors, and I click split. And then let's say I come over here and I don't want this particular section, and then tap on it again. So I put my playhead now at the end. I put my playhead over here when I wanted to cut right there, but I want to cut at the other end too. And let's say the other end is right here. So then I put my playhead right where I want to do my next cut, and I split, and now it's multiple clips. From a viewer perspective, you won't notice the split, but now I could tap on this piece in the middle and I can actually delete it if I wanted to. So that allows you to kind of then, that's where bringing in videos from or photos even from other apps is handy, because even if those videos have some weird stuff at the beginning or end, doesn't matter. You can shorten the clip on either end, or you could split out chunks of it and delete chunks of it from the middle. So that's how you can blend the different apps together. Cool. Questions? Everyone good with that? All right, so now I'm just gonna show a couple of apps that we may or may not have right now because of depending on where the iPad is and the updating standpoint and stuff like that. The big one is, let me do this again, is the big one that I really like is Explain Everything. And depending on device version updates, there's the white one or the purple one, right? There's free and subscriber models to it. We have both in the district. It just depends on what's been pushed out. The white one is the EDU one, which allows a little bit more features sort of without paying for the monthly upgrade. And it's cool because you can do a new project. And it gives you templates and things like that, but I like the blank canvas just to demonstrate the possibilities. And Explain Everything is cool because it's basically a whiteboard. And I can tap on my pencil and let's do that. I'm gonna say, oh, whoops, it's yellow. I didn't want yellow. All right, whiteboard. Whee! Super awesome, right? Basic. Nothing special. We can erase. Where Explain Everything becomes really cool is it just a whiteboard, but if we go to, we'll take the pen, I can now record. And at the bottom, there's a little record button. So if I press record, what it's doing is it's recording what I'm saying, and it's also recording what I write. And I can stop it. And you can see it actually gives you the timeline. You can actually scroll through and see then it records the keystrokes. So then if I played it, you can't hear it because we're on the Zoom and stuff, but you can see the waveform of my voice. And you see the static thing, but then you also see it actually records what I write on it, which is pretty cool. Now, what's also really nice about this is that you can do multiple pages. So in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little plus button, and now there's multiple pages, almost like Google Slides, let's say. You can bring in with the plus button. Oh, they moved it. There we go. Insert. I can insert anything, right? There's clip art, there's files, you can do videos, pictures. One of the nice things about this is image from Unsplash, which is like a free photo service. So it actually does a little bit of sort of image searching for you. It's possible that they may get blocked because since we're going to have the district filter, there's going to be things that even at home, the kids may get like a little greenish gray box with like a circle and a line through it. That means that that service, whatever is servicing those photos or videos or whatever, is blocked by the district because our firewall is going to be in place at home on your district devices. But let's say I insert a video. So I can record a video. And what I'll do is I'll flip it around so you're going to stare at me. And I'm going to record a video. Now, what this is doing is this is just recording the video into, I'm not recording anything on the slide. It's just recording just a straight video. So I'll stop. So there's my video. And there's a little play button on it. So I can play it. But I can also pinch and zoom it. And I can move it around. Where Explain Everything gets really cool is that now what I can do is if I want to talk about this video, I'm going to start over here. I can start recording and say like, you know, this is the tutorial. I can click play. And then go. And I press stop. What that's done is.
Does it adjust the font size so it fits the page with the image?
Yep, so watch. So this is now playing the video. So you're seeing my keystrokes. This is playing as if it was on your television or wherever. Then the video plays because I tapped it and I pinched and zoomed so it actually shows the motion of the video and it plays the video inside the video essentially. And the video stops and I pinch back out. And you notice it resized the canvas. I pinched out further than I was pinched in to begin with. So that's cool because you can mix and match different media in this. And when you're not hearing my voice playback on it, just because I'm connected to Zoom and I'm using the Zoom, and it's like there's a whole bunch of reasons why you're not hearing that. It would also probably be super, you know, echoey and stuff, but it would play. So like you could document something, kids could document something, and it's 2 pages. And now what's cool is, and I'm giving you sort of the dime tour on this. I'm gonna let you spend a few minutes on it because I think everyone has it. Middle schoolers, do you guys have this? I know at one point you guys did, right? Yeah. And I know I pushed it out to Sarah's iPad, and Christine, you have this, correct? Yeah. So like, there's other things. I mean, there's, you know, paint buckets to drop things in. There's shapes. There's, like I said, clip art. There's a ton of stuff. What I think this is really useful for is you can do these tutorials where you mix and match things. You can even, when you add this, you can add a file. So I can add a file from photos. And I can add something I did earlier. And let's bring in my smartboard thing. So I can import that. And that's there. And what's cool is like down here, I'm at 31 seconds at the very bottom. So if I wanted to, I could open this up. And now if I started recording again, this video that I just added wouldn't show up until the 31st second. And then something different would happen. So you can add things throughout, or alternately, I could remove it from here and Just by pressing and holding, I get that little inspector, and I can delete, I can arrange, and then I can always just go to the next page if I wanted to, and I insert a file from Photos, from Drive, from wherever, and I import, and that's there, and then I can do my next thing. The best part about Explain Everything is that when you use that little arrow out of the box in the top right, is you can save it as a video. And what it's going to do is when I save it to Photos, it's going to take a minute to do this, because what it's doing is it's taking each of those slides with their individual recordings and animations, and it's stitching them together to make one cohesive movie. And that's why it takes a little while. And I always do show this because apps like these, you want to leave open. You don't want to quit this app or get out of this app while it's processing. So you sort of have to build a little, you can actually even see it in the background, like at what level of the video that it's processing. It's a super robust app, and was created by a middle school math teacher, actually, as part of his doctoral thesis a number of years ago. And he's dumped a ton of time and energy and effort, and he really loves it. And so it's a great app because he designed it to like use in his own classroom. So now if I come down here and if I go to my camera roll, I now have this new movie, and it's playing, and you would be hearing the generic, stuff. And then now you see that come in. And obviously if you write something and then record, it'll just be static. You could also, pause and erase. So you see how it stitches the slides together automatically. Like I'm not pressing anything. This video is now running as a self-contained movie. And again, what's cool about this is Explain Everything can mix and match and blend the whiteboard with videos together, but it can save to the camera roll. And then if you wanted to, you could always bring this into iMovie and do something else with it. You can mix and match, you can create slides, visuals in Keynote that you then, use and annotate and explain everything. And then now here's this video, and then I didn't play it or anything. So it's just gonna be up there for a few seconds, and then that's it. Now that video's done. But what's cool about it is that it allows you to mix those mediums. So like, whereas I think Nancy was saying earlier about Notability not being as multimedia as you think, Explain Everything is more that multimedia that Notability kind of wants to be. Does that make sense? Does everyone have Explain Everything?
Yes, I have.
So
I don't know if I should use my Scarsdale school account or my personal account. If I'm not one of the teachers that gets iPads or any, I don't get these devices, these apps.
Are you on a Scarsdale device right now?
No, I don't. I only have my own personal iPad, and I was thinking, should I do it under my personal email where it says create the account? Okay.
Yeah, if it's a personal device, use your personal email.
Okay.
Sometimes Explain Everything, depending on which version it is, it'll say like you can get a limited time, like you get like only like one slide and stuff, and that's fine. So if you're running on just the basic one slide thing, no problem. Use that just to play around with the fact that you can import the different elements and use the whiteboard and record and things like that just to play. We're just gonna do like half hour, like 30 minutes, just play around with Explain Everything. And then we're going to use sort of from like 1 to 3 to kind of start like wrapping this around and sort of tying up the loose ends. Cool. All right. So go forth. We'll touch base at 1 o'clock.
Question.
Okay. So you had a little bit of time to play with Explain Everything. What did people think? Questions? Difficulties? It's a cool app. I love it. It's very flexible and versatile.
Are there places online where it actually explains each tool? Because I was looking at their tutorials, and their tutorials were like, you can do really cool things. This is super. Have fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are a bunch of videos on YouTube of people like using it and going through. They're not super necessarily detailed tutorials, but if you watch some of them, you'll see what buttons people are clicking on to make things happen. This is one of those apps where people who really connect with it will make these like crazy awesome things. And you're like, oh my God, how'd you do that? And it's like 150 pages long. And you're like, what? I think it's really useful from the standpoint of like, you can record yourself solving a math problem, or you can, you know, put a picture up and talk over it, or, you know, like those are super simple, but super important, because there are times where you may have like a diagram of something and you want to, or like historical picture, and you want to sort of explain what the picture is about. And you could like have the picture up and record yourself explaining it and draw little arrows and annotate the picture while you're talking. Simple, right? But like, there's not a lot of apps that let you do that as a standalone thing that you can then save out to a movie. This does. And then you could have that for kids to reference. And that kind of goes back to that whole notion of like, how long should things be? You could use something like Explain Everything to just do a simple photo, quick, kind of, you know, maybe it's a minute long. And then we're going to do one more app, and then we'll talk about like exporting and how we should really be building these and storing these and then sharing. But that'll be the thing, is like, you could have your lesson may be a 15-minute lesson, but it's not a 15-minute video. It may be 3 2-minute videos that just summarize the key points. Like, where are we going to put that?
I could see this for grammar lessons, you know, like we do grammar errors in the middle school, but also like I just did a poetry lesson with it, with the road not taken. And it's really easy for that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is like, there's so many places you can go with it, and it's flexible, and it's great because you can include videos and pictures and writing, and you don't have to record the writing. You could write something and then record after you've already written it or typed it. And it gives you a lot of different leeway. Everyone good if we move on to one more app before we deviate towards sort of publishing and sharing components? Oops. All right, so what we're going to do is, because, and I'm sort of changing up what was originally on the agenda. I know on the agenda I had mentioned things like Paper 53 and Book Creator. We're going to sort of deviate away from that, only because there's been issues with downloading different apps and different apps being sort of standard across the board. Book Creator, what I'll do is I will, and I'm realizing as I've been looking at these, there were apps that were on my iPad sort of in the beginning. Whoops, I unplugged the wrong thing. There were apps that were on my iPad sort of in the beginning that have disappeared, and I think that's because we're in this transition. But what I will do is I will show real quick the Book Creator. Now, Book Creator, we have a subscription at the elementary level for certain teachers. Middle school doesn't have the subscription, but there is a free version of Book Creator that you could do to create little bits of it. So what I'm going to do is just give you the quick dime tour of Book Creator, since we don't all have the same level of access. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but just know that it's a great app, and you know, you can create books. And what's cool is you can do things like what I've done with kindergarten, where they create a book and you could have text, so you could type, you could draw, hand drawing. You can also take photos and put them in, draw different things, mix and match the text. You notice you could change the size of the text. And what's cool too is, like, although I'll go back to the front page, there's this little speaker icon. You can record directly into it. One of the downsides is you can only then like play it back in Book Creator and hear it in Book Creator. So it does have its limitations. You can, if you're making just a standard book, you have, you know, a number of pages where you can have different things. Again, you can annotate. The annotating is a little bit weird because it kind of combines it into one piece. If I just draw 2 arrows, they're not separate elements. And then I can't go back in and edit it. I can cut it, I can do other things, but I can't edit the drawing once I've done it. So there's some limitations there. What's really cool about it is the fact that you can make a new book. You can buy books, and you can have different shapes and layouts for them. But what's really cool is the comic book features. So if anyone, or graphic novel, whatever you want to call it, if anyone's ever used Comic Life, Book Creator basically has Comic Life built into it. So when if you're using Book Creator, you're using one of those graphic novel grids, use the little plus button and you can get your panels. and you can choose your different sort of graphic novel style panels, and then it walks you through. Do you want to take a picture? Do you want to add a photo? You know, you can add speech bubbles, right? You can add thought bubbles, text, stickers like POW, Zoom, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a fun app. Again, this is a big K3 app for us. Third grade, we actually have the subscription for like the website version, because there's a way you can run the website. We have the app. There may be, and if this seemed like something that might be interesting from, and it could totally be cool from like a social studies ELA standpoint, there may be enough iPad licenses in the district to actually use them with the middle school students. And so it's a cool app just to, you know, mix and match certain things and have these different elements. Like I've done, you know, different, oh, I don't have it on this one, do I? No, I have a ton of examples. First grade, make it a basic book, mixing and matching different things. Like I said, the one downside is that for things like the multimedia components, you really have to view it in Book Creator or share it, like airdrop the book to another iPad user to get the full complements of the app. But you can, like if I wanted to get rid of this one, I can export it as an EPUB. So it can go like in like iBooks, you know, you can read it like in iBooks. PDF is going to just be a flat, you know, so there's no like voice stuff on that. You can make it into a video where basically it has you like turning the pages. And then if you have the teacher account, which we do for certain grade levels, they can actually publish it online. So it's really cool. You can do a lot. It's very simple and straightforward. There's not a lot of, there's not a steep learning curve on it, because it literally is just about this plus button in the top right-hand corner and adding texts, photos, pencil, sound, you know, shapes. You could add a map. You can embed links. Everything's done under that plus button. And we do it from kindergarten up. And like I said, the iPad app is a little bit different than the web subscription. The web subscription, we sort of have to pay like for certain grade levels. The iPad app, the district does own a bunch. I don't know how many they have. So like middle school folks might want to reach out to like Doug and Michael and say, hey, listen, maybe can I get one on my own personal one just to see if I dig it, and how many do we have available? Because this might be fun to use with, you know, an ELA or something like that.
So the kids are going to have the iPad version to use?
They should. At the elementary level, K1 and 2, they should have
we
the
did it on the Chromebook. They did
Right.
it on the web last year.
Yes, because that was the reason why we had to do that, was because the web version is the paid version separate from the app version. And we could always buy like new versions of the app. They work a little bit different just because of the cloud-based, you know, like if you're doing it on the app, it's just on the device. Whereas if you're doing it in the cloud, you could kind of, you know, leave the device and go to a different device and stuff like that. So that's Book Creator, which is cool and it's useful. So play around with it. Like I said, if you don't have it for your middle school folks, you should be able to get it, at least one copy for your teacher device to test and see if it'll work before you decide whether or not you want to actually use it with students. Yeah.
Chris, it's different than creating your own iBook?
Yes. So iBook.
Because that's what I was interested in.
So iBook's Author is a desktop app.
Okay.
You know, that was, you created it on your Mac in order to view on your iPad. And to be honest, I don't even know how much Apple is really supporting that software anymore. And especially since you guys are iPad based, if you wanted them to make a book, Keynote would be a way to kind of make a book, because you can have a lot of those interactive elements in Keynote now. Like you can put videos into Keynote, you can put audio in Keynote, you can do a lot of that iBooks Author stuff in Keynote. Or on a simpler level, you would do Book Creator, because it's a little bit less robust, but it's more straight to the point. And it could be even the type of thing where maybe what you do is you start with book creator, if you have it at the middle school, you start with it and say, hey, listen, we're going to do a quick sort of down and dirty little book. Let's try it out. Like, cool. And the kids are like, oh yeah, this is fun. I remember this from like first grade. Like, all right, cool. Now let's amp it up. And now let's use Keynote and let's make it look better. Let's make it deeper. Let's add more elements to it. You know, like that might be how you use some of these apps as you sort of transition from, you know, the entry level assignment with one of them. And then once you see how it works and if the kids are cool with it, and not just cool with it in terms of, do they like it, but like, does it work in your workflow? Like, are they able to easily accomplish what you expected them to accomplish? Does it come out the way you sort of thought? And is it supportive? Because my whole thing is like, at the end of the day, this tech stuff is only as good as the curriculum content you're teaching. So like, if you're doing it and it's way more about the tech and less about the content, that like, don't use it. Like, don't use it just because a tech teacher told you to. Like, and that's why sometimes that's why a lot of times I say, start with that small thing and see if the notion works. Like if the concept works for your curriculum and your classes and sort of in your process, then you can get more deeper on the tech if you know at least like the premise holds. And that's why we do a lot with those like movies. And I showed you those scripts because that way we have the writing component, we have the revision component, we have like the public speaking component, we have all that sort of ending up as a video, but we're able to build all these other things in with it.
Right. I mean, the reason I was interested in iBook is because I do not have a textbook, you know, so I was thinking about creating an iBook for a unit, for instance, you know, and putting the material in there. So it would be something that I create and then push out to them in their iPads.
Yes. So you would do, and it's not even iBooks Author anymore. It's, I believe Apple is building all that stuff into Pages, and okay, you'd have to take a look online. And I think it's still only really as robust on the desktop version of Pages. Okay. So, because iBooks Author was always a desktop only app that created mobile books. It was sort of one of those ironies. So they're transitioning away from iBooks Author to Pages as their like sort of digital publishing app. So take a look at that. In theory, what you could do is you could still do like a keynote presentation. You know, you sort of take a look and see like if Apple is really facilitating Pages is the way to go to put it into iBooks, then definitely do that. Okay. You know, but also don't shy away from something like a presentation platform where, like I showed you that Google Slides when I did, where I just linked to different pages for chapters and stuff. Because sometimes, like we've said, like sometimes the least elegant solution is the most efficient and effective. Like instead of trying to relearn pages or relearn like a new way to do things, maybe just giving them access to a Google slideshow with a bunch of links that you can update constantly affects the same result in a simpler, cleaner way. But again, you sort of have to navigate that for yourself and for your content area and your staff or your students. The one thing we will take a look at real fast, because this is a little bit more relevant to our situation, our hybrid situation, is Jamboard.
Yeah, can I ask you a question before?
Yeah, of course.
So like, if I was going to do a math lesson, would I want to do it on Jamboard, or would I want to, like, how does that work with that, or this Explain Everything EDU? Like, how are their features?
So
I'm like so confused right now.
No problem. That's why we're doing this. So they're different interactions. So Jamboard is like a live whiteboard. It's literally like
you can screen record on it, right? Like Screencastify, or no?
Yeah, I mean technically, but it's not as like clean and straightforward. And then, so Jamboard is more like every kid in the room, instead of them coming up to the smartboard, they can't come up to the smartboard. You could have them in their little 6-foot separated blocks, all logged into Jamboard in front of you with the big giant screen in the front of the room showing everyone's contribution. Sort of like real time.
They can write on it while I'm writing on it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like real-time whiteboard.
Okay.
Explain Everything would be more like you want to make that like short tutorial video where you talk over how you're explaining the math, like 2 + 2, carry the 1, whatever it is. Like make a short one because it includes the whiteboard feature and includes the photos and things like that. That's going to be kind of that self-contained thing.
What does that front interface look like for Jamboard? Can you show us that without a website?
Yep. I'm gonna do that in just a second. And then in terms of like second grade for you, Jen, like in terms of like the kids annotating stuff, the start of the year, I would just use Seesaw and import the file from Drive and make that like the template. So then when they have it, they open it up and it's that template and they just kind of write on it, you know, and they have the different pages. As time goes on, and if they get more comfortable with the tech and it becomes more fluid and you start introducing more of the Google stuff, then maybe you say, all right, let's amp it up and let's go to Notability where now we can do a little bit more with it. But Seesaw might be enough for you to put like a page or two of math in there and have them draw on it, because they can also record themselves talking through their thought process. You know, so the majority of your student doing the homework might be Seesaw. Jamboard would be like live interaction in the classroom. Explain Everything would be you like creating little tutorial videos, let's say, if you wanted to, not that you have to, but you could. iMovie and Keynote might be like, listen, I want my kids to do a basic presentation, but I don't want them signing into Google. It's too much of a hassle. All right, use Keynote. It's built in. And then we could AirPlay the thing. When I see you the next PM day, we'll AirPlay it to share. You know, iMovie, you want to get the kids using a little movie. You don't have Wii Video access, so use iMovie. You know, it's a little less robust, but it's at their fingertips and it's easily accessible. And you sort of play around like that. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Jamboard. So I'm going to share this with you guys. Now, what this is basically just like online whiteboard. And if any of you have been to the district office, you've seen possibly that one physical Jamboard that's in one of the conference rooms. It's like orange and it's like 55 inches on like this like weird stand. Originally, Jamboard was literally that. It was the actual board. And the app was like a companion to the physical board, where the point was you could be in a meeting in a conference room and some people are virtual, but they're all contributing on the same board. Now it's more of a standalone app where you can actually create boards. So meaning I have this empty space, so I'm going to make a new board.
So neat.
And I have this, right? And what I'm going to do is, you know, I can write on it. Right, so that's my whiteboard. Now I want to share it with you and I want to have people actually start to use it. So what I can do is I can click the 3 dots and I can share. And what I can do is I can actually then type in like your names, Gerald, and then obviously you might have like a class roster where you might not be typing in individual kids' names. You know, you might have like at the elementary level, you use Hapara, so all the groups are like TD dash whatever. There may be Schoology user group names or like grade level Google groups, Google Classroom groups, things like that. So it just depends on what you know, how you do it, where you don't necessarily need to type it all in at the same time. Oh wait, Sarah's not. There we go. And then, whoops, forgot one. And then right there. Okay, cool. So now, just like on a computer or a Google Doc, you can make them editor, or you can just do viewer, where you can send it to them so they can see it, right? So they're not necessarily editing this, and you can change those permissions. So then you will get an email, and then they will click on it, and then they can join. Now, what you can also do is, oops, that's wrong button. So check your emails while you're waiting. Now, what you can also do is you can, because like let's say K12 doesn't have email addresses, what you can do is you can still, like Jen's 2nd grade class, they may not have email accounts, so they won't get the link, but they have emails. So she can still share it with the class. But then what she can do is she could copy the link, and then she could put the link in Seesaw. She could put the link in something else that she shares out to the kids. You know, she could put it in a Seesaw announcement so that she can get it. So then you can actually still have that ability to share it even if the kids aren't having active email boxes. But this is why from 3rd and above, we've turned on email so that way you can actually facilitate these types of things.
So it says in like just general Google directions that we can create our own contact groups. Do we really have that in our Gmail suite, or is that turned off because we're not admin?
No, you have it. It's contacts.google.com. And then you could then create, they've changed it. They tried to align it more with how Google works. So now they're like, instead of like contact folders or whatever, they're labels. So just like in Gmail, you have labels and filters and stuff. Contacts is now like that. Because for a while, they like in contacts, you had groups, but it was small g. And that was confusing people with Google Groups, big G.
Okay.
Big G Google Groups is what admins create. Contact labels are collections of email addresses that a user creates within their own account. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if I say create label in there. And
that label is like a small g group, which is a collection of emails. But so I saw Jen was on, Christine is on. Right, so now you guys should be able to contribute to this board.
Do you want us on our iPads or on?
Doesn't matter either way. If you don't happen to have, this is the beauty of it, right? If you don't happen to have this on your iPad, because at one point this was one of our sort of standard Google apps that got pushed out, but I think they're readjusting the basics. But it's good to show that you can be on either. So let's say you're in class, but you know that a couple of kids are home, you know, I don't know, not COVID sick, but they're home with whatever, they broke his ankle, right? Kid's home, not switching to the virtual school, still going to be like doing your hybrid model. But for that one particular day, you're just like, hey, listen, I'm going to do this Jamboard. We're all going to work in class, but here, I'm going to give this link out to all of my students. So that way, even the one that has the doctor's appointment today can still contribute, whether they're on their iPad, their iPhone, their home computer, whatever it is.
So the remote cohort for us, Chris, is actually exactly as you say. They're not a separate class. They're in our class on Zoom.
Oh, so then perfect. So then this works even better. Works even better for you then. Yeah, totally. Yeah, because our remote cohort is different. We have a
you guys have a separate teacher for that remote cohort. We have them. We don't know which period they'll be at. We don't know whether they'll be A days or B days, but they'll be there online.
So this is perfect because you can have this and you could be displaying this on, you could be mirroring your iPad, like airplaying your iPad to your television in your room. All the kids in the room can be on this if you wanted them to, or you could say to them, listen, kids in the room, you're not going to join the Jamboard. You're just going to watch the screen in front. Kids at home, you're going to follow along on the Jamboard and we're going to do everything, live.
Now, are we thinking of rolling this out to all of the kids' iPads?
I thought that, yes, it was going to be on all of them. At one time, they were on all of ours at Heathcote. I think things are getting updated and moved on. This would be one of those things where if it's not there, next week, then you shoot, and just say, hey, listen, Jamboard would be super useful. Can we make sure all staff and student iPads have it? I mean, it's a free app, so pushing it out, it's like just a couple of clicks of a button. So then you have that ability. And so that's why this is a little bit different than like an Explain Everything. Explain Everything, you're sort of recording within like your own little world. You're making your little multimedia thing. This is more this interactive live. We're all writing on the same whiteboard, but we're all in different rooms.
Chris, can you tell who's writing what?
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky on the iPad, but you all have the color. I forget where it is. If I was looking at this on my computer, I forget where it is, but I would see who is doing it. Let me open up my computer. Let me get this one, because I know if you notice, if you look at them, they're all slightly different. That's in, or is it?
Okay. So,
I could
Yeah.
see getting into trouble with this.
Yeah. And you need to, right, and you need to consider that. And that's why you may say, listen, the kids at home, you're not going to be or I'm sorry, the kids in school maybe aren't going to be using it. They're going to be just watching live. And maybe it's just the kids at home that are doing it. But of course, as with any of these,
so can you put a document in a PDF in a Jamboard and have them work on it like as a breakout group in Zoom?
hold on a second. Not as a breakout group. What you could do is you could create a different board for like breakout groups.
Right.
You could, depending on whether or not you, how well, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Depending on how well you thought your class might work, what you could do is you could assign each group a page, because you can have multiple pages on the board. So again, depending on your sort of dynamic, you can say, all right, like group A, you're going to be page 1. Group B, you're going to be page 2. Group whatever, and then it's the one board. You could theoretically make a different Jamboard for each breakout group.
Can they make their own Jamboards? Like if I say, here's my Jamboard with this political cartoon from the election of 1876, make your own, work on it within your breakout group. I'll be hopping from group to group.
We'd have to check the settings on that, because I know that I believe at the elementary level, the kids can join the Jamboards, but can't make them. There's different like permission levels based on age. And that would also be a thing where you just sort of touch base with Doug and Michael about it and say, like, middle school is a lot more open. They probably can create their own boards. And then, you could do something.
We are not getting it as of now.
Yeah. So reach out to them and talk to them about it. I mean, I was definitely planning on using it, with the kids and with staff and stuff,
Yeah, I just checked that little app thing that we have, and it's not on there either.
On the website, if you go to jamboard.google.com, you'll get to it. So what I'll do is, let me show this. And admittedly, I haven't used this a whole ton, because prior to sort of now, there hasn't been a reason to use this a whole ton. So like this is what it looks like on the computer. So then I can actually see like who's logged in, and in theory, the different colors are supposed to associate with the different things. I thought there might not be. What's cool though is to send feedback to Google. They're super responsive to that. So if in playing around with it, you notice that like, you really can't tell who did something, that would be something to give them feedback on. To say, listen, it'd really be great to know who wrote that. Because, Google, you can actually see sort of, it has the name, or not Google, sorry, this is Google Docs. It has like the name attached to it. Like you can see the cursor, it's a little like pink or green or yellow, little like dropper. So yeah, that would be one of those, send some stuff to them, send some feedback. But then what's cool is on here, you can actually change the background. So if you wanted to, you could say like, practice your handwriting. Not that you want to practice handwriting on a live Jamboard, but and you notice like Christine Boyer's Joan, it was that color. So if she started writing, she theoretically would be writing in that sort of pinkish fuchsia. But yeah, it would be cool if there was a better way to tell. Then you can see the two things and you can move them around. You can delete one if you like what was put on it. You can delete it. You can reorganize these things, stuff like that. Just looking at this. So yeah, I mean, there's not a whole ton of features, but it is useful if you guys are teaching remote and if you guys are going to be live synchronous with the virtual kids. But try it out like day one and see sort of how it works. And, you know, try it out maybe if you're going to do the breakout rooms with the kids. You think about it from a management standpoint. You say, all right, like how many breakout rooms do I really need? Am I going to have the virtual kids? Maybe they're just going to be in one breakout room and I'm going to keep my in-person kids in a different breakout room. So I have like 2 Jamboards, you know, where I have like, I only need to create one for the kids outside of the room, but I can create a different one for the kids inside the room. You know, because in theory, you're still only having a small subset of kids in the room. You're not necessarily having 25, right? The distancing. So in theory, you could basically do like, all right, there's going to be one Jamboard that we do together live and another one that the Zoom kids are going to do like off by themselves. And then we'll come back and share both with each other. You got to play around with that and see where that sort of fits in the process, you know, once we get in. That's why like the first week or 2 is really just going to be about like, what's this look like? You know, like, I mean,
Hopefully it'll be failing up, hopefully.
Yeah. And that's why with a lot of these things, like, I know I haven't given you a ton of time to spend on each one of these apps, but I want you to dabble a little bit just to see a couple of options, because it's really going to be about first sorting out what is the year look like get the kids' iPad on, like at the middle school, like log into Schoology, log into Google. Do you see the stuff you need? Do you get the database? Fantastic. That like leads into week 2 or whatever, you know.
Right there, like one of the funniest problems that I had was they'd create these shared documents, they'd copy and paste it to me and not share the link. And then I'd be sending email after email being like, can you please share? Please share. If they create a folder that's just Nancy Collins, you know, social studies, Janie Fitzgerald, English, and they save our work into there and we have access to that folder, we should get all of their stuff without having
Correct.
to worry about privileges, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, what you should do is
Gotta be set up from the start.
yeah, tell your kids from the beginning, make a folder, share it with me, make sure I'm an editor of the folder. Everything you do for the class goes into that folder. You know, and then you can decide if you two are working super lockstep where it's one folder for both classes, or if maybe there's one folder for each of you for sort of individual work and then a different folder that's like a shared, you know, so the kids might have 3. That sort of depends on how, like what you guys, you know, from how you think the kids can handle the organization. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, both Nancy and I give them a lot of stuff, so I think they're probably going to need the separate folders.
Yeah. And again, that's where you sort of sort that out. Say, all right, like let's do, I'll have my ELA, my math, my social studies, whatever it is. And that's how we have it at the elementary level. Like the homeroom teacher has access to all these folders by content area. They have a reading, a writing, a math, a social studies, a science. So they'll tell the kids, like, listen, create this file in your social studies folder. And then that way the teacher doesn't have to go looking for it. The teacher just has access to the social studies folder and they can see it. The kids can then make subfolders in there based on unit or project, and the teacher still has access to that because it's in that top level content area folder. You know, so however you guys want to set that up, which again goes back to like the first week or 2 even is going to be figuring out what that workflow is. How adept are the kids? You guys are lucky that you're 8th grade teachers, so that way the kids are theoretically super familiar after 2 years of these devices, and it's the same device. Like they're intimately familiar. Like this is my device. Using Schoology, using all these things, and hopefully the learning curve is more on your end, which would be a good thing because it means the kids are more proficient, and then you get to just kind of figure out the flow, and then you know, so. Cool. All right, so now let's talk about how we're going to start wrapping this up, and then we'll leave the rest of the time to kind of clean up, finish the little bits and bobs and things of that nature. Now, In terms of the iPads, let me swap my iPad. So what I do is for all of my stuff, and I'll share my computer screen temporarily. So what I do is for all of my stuff, I post my things to my blog. And this will work for blog, website, school wires, whatever it may be, right? So I have this. So what I've done is on this blog, I have just put in my Google slideshow. And if I had a Google site, like the Heathcote Gateway, it's really easy to put that in. The Google stuff works really well together. So for instance, if you're a teacher that's using a Google site as like your main sort of place that kids go to look at stuff, once it loads, I'm going to go over to a page that doesn't matter. I have this development page. And we'll scroll down to the bottom and we'll just do, so like if I wanted to put something into this page, I just go to insert and I have text, I have drive, I have images, I can do different sort of like layouts of pictures. But what's really cool is there's a YouTube link. So for videos like YouTube, like you want to put something in YouTube, what's the YouTube address? So that's why like if you have videos, post them on YouTube, and it's as simple as just dropping the link in. For something like slides or docs or whatever, you just click the particular app, so slides or docs, and it'll actually show you your Google slideshows. And then, I don't know, let's put in here, 5437, that's this one. I just click on it and I click insert and it drops it in. And it's literally that easy. And if I wanted to preview it, this is the website. With, that's not it, with all the different random things I've put in. And see, it's just like that easy to publish these things and have them somewhere. So that's the one I just put in. It's already in present mode. It's already where it is. If you were going to put this in, like, let's say School Wires has a little embed widget where you would want to get your embed code from. And to do that in Google Slides, it's File, Publish to the Web. And when you publish it, you can either as a link or an embed. You would choose embed. Auto advance is only when they click the play button. Most people don't click the play button instinctually. Most people click on the actual image, which makes it just advance whenever they want to. But if you were worried about the auto advancing, you just set it for a minute. And don't start automatically because then it will actually start with the timings, and don't restart because then it will just keep looping. So leave those unchecked. And you click publish, and you say okay. And then you get this embed code, and then you would just copy and paste that into an embed widget on something like School Wires. And that will have the live presentation, meaning if you make a change to the presentation, it will update automatically on your website. Same thing with Google Sites. You drop it into a Google site, it will update automatically when you make the change because it's a live thing. Same thing with a Google Doc, any of that stuff. In terms of videos, I have a YouTube channel. We all have access to YouTube, and it's just a matter of going to YouTube and signing in and basically activating your account. Once you do, you can create a channel and you can create playlists. And so like if I went to this channel is, I use a different one more frequently, but which I'll show you in a second. But basically, you can put this up and you can make playlists. So you can organize your video content by assignment, by subject area, by unit, by whatever. The one I use more frequently is my Heathcote Tech one, because I'm enough of a dork. I have to have 2 YouTube channels. I don't really use the Chris Casal one. I just use the Heathcote Tech one for everything. So what I've done is I have playlists for everything. So when it comes to like, this was my class from last week. Eventually, once I get around to it, I will have a playlist for this class with the 2 videos in it. Capstone, This was our 5th grade collection of their 5th grade work. So like we had all the kids create some form of video components for their capstone project. So this one has 68 videos in it. So if you want to see what our students did, you go to the capstone folder or you go to the capstone playlist and you can see it. From a teacher standpoint, again, this would be broken down by assignment, by content area. For like the elementary, it might be math, science, social studies. Middle school, you are a content area teacher, so you might break it down by theme or by unit or something like that. And then it's just a matter of posting tutorial videos. And then you can have, or not even tutorial videos, like kids can share videos with you and you can post them, with permission. We post all these student videos here and we do it for 2 reasons. One is we want the kids to have voice, like legitimate voice, where when they do an assignment, they actually have a place where they can go and watch it and it doesn't exist somewhere else. We tell them don't put their don't put their last names on it. Don't make reference to personal things. And then it technically is the identity of the owner of that content is technically Heathcote Tech. So it's not like they're publishing it because they can't publish to their own YouTube channel. So we publish it here and that's like a layer of security. And what it allows them to do is really have a place to share what they've created beyond just, hey, I made this thing, I shared it with you in Drive and it's over. Gets them a little bit more excited into it because if you have them make that movie on the iPad, you could have them share that movie with you in Drive. You can publish it to YouTube and then give them that link and they're like, oh my God, my video's on YouTube, it's so cool. And they love that. And it's good for them because then they really know that what they're creating isn't just for that moment, that it's something bigger. So looping back then to like sort of how do we do all this? So I'm going to stop sharing this so I can share my iPad. And now one quirk of YouTube is that you cannot upload to YouTube from Drive. So that's kind of a pain in the butt. So what I'll do is like with assignments, when I want the kids to turn stuff in, I'll make a giant folder, or not giant folder, I'll just make a folder and I'll call it, Mr. Smith's final projects. Share with all the kids and I'll tell the kids what to name it. And I'll have the kids drop them in there. And then once they're all in there, I'll download the entire folder. So I'll get all their videos. And then once they're in my downloads folder, then I can drag them up to YouTube and do them. On the iPad, let's share the screen. So on the iPad, like when you have iMovie, which we were in earlier, and we just did the little arrow. Now, like I said, I like to save the video because I like to have it, make sure it saves out before I try to upload it to YouTube, and I'll save it. If it's long, I'll do 720, but generally everything I do, I try to do in like 3 minutes or less. So I'll do the 1080 and then this will export. Now, much like Explain Everything, it takes a minute and you need to leave the app open while it's doing it. Because what this is it's processing and smoothing out those transitions. It's making the slow-mo not look choppy, or it's making the fades or the cross dissolves not look jittery. And that's what this is doing.
By open viewing the app in the forefront, so if I tried to toggle back to something else, would it also stop?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you basically just need, once you hit it, you got to sit there and wait, which is also another reason why not to have like a 10-minute video, because you're going to be sitting there for 25 minutes waiting for the thing to export. So then once it's out, I can come back to my photos. So now, I have it and I've got this one here. I've got my Explain Everything one. I've got my content that I've created. What I can do is now I can, as a teacher, open up the YouTube app. And I purposefully say teacher because the student workflow is going to be a little bit different. So then what I would do is in the top right-hand corner there, I'm logged in as my Heathcote Tech person. So then what I would do is I would just come over here to the little camera and I could record directly to it, or down below I've got those little tiles. These are my videos. So I could tap on that video. and I say next, and then this is where I can give the information and the details about it. Title, description. I could change unlisted to public or private. Public means anyone can find it. Unlisted means you will be the only one who can see it on YouTube. But if you copy the YouTube link for your video and give it out to anybody, then anybody can find it and see it. They just won't literally see it on youtube.com. So it's sort of hidden. Like it's public, but hidden. Private is like a Google Doc where you could literally share it with anyone you want. And then you could upload, you know, and you can put them up on YouTube. You can then make playlists and organize them and move them around. From a student standpoint, what they would do is they have it in their photos and they're like, okay, you know, Mr. Smith said I need to turn this in. So what they would do is they would go to Drive, find that folder that you shared with them, right? It'd be like it shared with me, let's say. We'll put it in Sarah's. Excuse me. So like Sarah shared this folder with me. So if I wanted to, I would click plus and I would click upload photos and videos. And then I can say, all right, I want to upload that one. And I click upload. So then essentially what would happen is, and you might say to them, listen, you're going to upload these things and it's going to be called, you know, 1080p.movie or whatever. 3 dots, rename, you know.
Chris, if what happens when people follow you on YouTube and you don't publish anything publicly, you just share your link? Do the people who follow you automatically get notified when you make a new movie on YouTube?
To my knowledge, they will just know because they're not listed, like they subscribe to you, but technically you're not publishing anything to your channel. So as far as I've ever seen it work, they don't see anything. It's still blank. And that's it. So they can subscribe to you, but there's nothing there because your video is unlisted. It's not even seen on YouTube. It's like hidden.
So Chris, is the reason to not publish it directly to YouTube from the iPad the fact that you can't change the settings?
There's that. There's also when you're doing it, and you saw that when I saved the video to the downloads folder, how it stayed and it processed, it will still do that to YouTube. Like it'll still go through that like few minute process. I'm always wary of doing that processing and uploading simultaneously. Because like what happens if like your internet conks out, or what happens if, you know, the rest of your family is watching Netflix and like it takes a million years. At least if you save it to your camera roll, you know you have it saved on the physical device by itself, and then you can upload it separate.
Is there a way once you've uploaded it via that link to change the settings? Because mine defaulted to private.
Totally. So anything, so actually here, we'll do this. Let me, and I'll share it this way. I will share the whole desktop so you can see both.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'll go to YouTube and we'll say next, and I'll say, you know, demo, and say demo, right? And this is unlisted, right? We'll say private, and then I upload. Cool. Now I'm like, all right, like it's going up, it's preparing, it's taking a little while. And again, as you're looking at this, like to go straight from iMovie for iMovie to process and then process this too, like all sort of in one fell swoop, I feel like there's more of a chance for something to go wrong. Whereas if I save it to the camera roll, done. It's 100% complete. Then if my internet conks out, it doesn't matter. I don't have to go back to iMovie to re-export it back to YouTube. I already have it exported in my camera roll, so then I can be a little bit more efficient. Or then maybe I export a bunch of them while I'm sitting there eating lunch, and then at night I'm gonna like upload them all, you know, one at a time while everyone's asleep or something. So while that's going, I'll show you like on the one right below. Well, there it goes. Now it's done. So like on this one, this top one, there's those 3 dots next to the video on the iPad. So you could always click edit and it will let you change certain things right there, right? It'll let you tap on the public and change it to private. It'll let you do certain things like that. Now, if you want some more detail, like one thing it doesn't give you in all this is it doesn't, when you're editing it, is it doesn't show you what playlist it's in. because we want it in a playlist. Otherwise, it's like this massive bucket. The 3 dots will let you save it to a playlist, and you'll see all those playlists that I have. But what you have to do is sort of set yourself up ahead of time. It's like that preparation, meaning that if I'm in here and I am on YouTube, this is my guy. Let me just log in. This account logs out all the time. All right, so now if I go back to YouTube, I just refresh, and see it'll change. Once I'm signed in Chrome, it'll change from sign in to my actual name. And then when I come over here to my channel, what I can do is I can go to YouTube Studio, and that's where all my videos live, and that's sort of the back end stuff that nobody sees. The general public like sort of sees that front end interface with the videos, but when you go to the studio, what that is that's your place. So I can take a look at all of my videos over here, and you can see they're all listed. This one is private. I can drop this down and I can change it to public. I can schedule it to go up at a certain time. I could schedule it to change or publish at a certain time. What I can also do is I can go to playlists, and this is where I'm going to see all my playlists and how many videos are in them. And what I can do is I can make a new playlist. So I'll make one called STI 5437 storytelling. Click create. So right now there's no video in there, right? But if I've created this, what I can do is I can now switch over. Let me switch over to my iPad so you can see it. So now I'm on my iPad, and all I did was I just pulled down to reload, and now I see my demo one at the top. So what I can do is I can click those 3 dots, and I could save it to a playlist. And then now, because I made that playlist just now on the computer, it's up there. Notice too, it actually says new playlist at the top right-hand corner. So I can also make a new playlist from right in here. So you have that ability to do it on either end. And then I can always add it to that. And then now that video is added to that playlist, and I can make my changes. It's still private. I can come over here and I can edit it, and I can change the settings from private to public. And I can leave it like that. And then it'll take a second to load. And now you can see underneath, there's like the little, it says demo, no views. It has my logo. Then underneath it has that globe. The globe means public. The lock means private. And then if I wanted it to be unlisted, it would be a link, because that means that only somebody with the link can see it. But then obviously they can forward that link to anybody. So unlisted, to me, unlisted is one of those like false senses of security, because it's a link. Like I can email you the link, but then you can email it to 1,000 people, and 1,000 people have the link and they can see it. It's like, where's the difference in terms of, I mean, it's not searchable. Like it just means unlisted also means like if they go to YouTube and search demo, they're not going to find it. But it's like, who's really going to be looking at this anyway? I mean, the content is so benign. But that's how you can publish these different things. So then in the context of this course and the remaining time that we have together, what does this all mean? So what this means is on the blog, one of the things that is there is participant projects. And what we're going to do is in this, it has a list of a bunch of apps. And I'm going to clean it up a little bit, but essentially it's just I've had the same sort of setup for all the different versions of these that we've used. just some links to some help guides and stuff and some other apps that I didn't really talk about because they don't necessarily apply in this situation, because if we're going to be remote, you know, like Paper is a great sketchnoting app. You can definitely play around with it. Green Screen by Doink is awesome, but if we're not doing small group work, we're not really going to be making sort of movies together in small groups because all the kids are going to kind of be alone. Same thing with iStop Motion. Like we always use that as group work, but we're not doing small group work. So some of those apps are in there just to have things to think about, but don't necessarily apply to our weird situation. So this participant project, so I'm going to share this with you guys. And what you're going to do is you'll basically put your name in there. You'll put, I got to change this. This is going to say project link and then notes. And what this is going to be is you're then going to figure out what you want to be as your project for this class. Maybe your project is a folder of all your half-done attempts at different things. And for me, that's fine because you've tried a bunch of different things. And if that's the case, you would put your name here. And then for the folder, what you would do is to share a folder link. Like if I come over here and do, it's just like, let's say it was this one. And if you've put stuff in here that you want to use as part of your project, you're welcome to drag it out of here and bring it back to your drive. But if you had a folder and you're like, here's a bunch of things that are attempted during this course, you share. You would share it with, you can share it with me. I mean, I share it with all of you guys, obviously. You want to make sure it's definitely shared with me, Fran, and Anne-Marie. But you can, or you can make it visible to anybody. If other people want to see it, you can share it with everyone in the class if you want. That doesn't matter. It's up, the sharing permissions is up to you. Copy the link, and then you would come over here and you would say, you know, like if I'm Chris, project link, and then just do a space to make it a link. And the notes would be like, you know, a folder of all my attempts. You know, like a sentence or two explaining sort of what it was. Maybe you're like, you know what, after all this, like I was really getting into my iMovie. I really want to like make that a thing. And feel free, if you're like, all right, I got a taste. Now I want to go do one thing to use in school. Awesome. Make that movie. Post that movie to YouTube and then put the YouTube link and be like, this is the app I really connected with. And this is the link and I made this and it's for the first day of class. You know, that type of thing. It doesn't have to be, I want these things to be useful. So I want your projects to either be a collection of raw, rugged attempts at things and a brief explanation of what you sort of took away and where you might go with it. Or, hey, listen, I actually got really into this one app and I made this thing that I'm going to use September 1st. That's it. And it's simple and clean because I want these things to be useful to you guys. And I want whatever you've done to like matter and, you know. Does that make sense? So we have an hour. So I will stay on, the call will be on. In terms of the classwork, we're done, no new content. Work on whatever you want to work on however you want to organize what you want to submit as the project. I'm here for questions, for support, and we'll use this last hour to kind of just like get you on the track to creating something. Either something for September 1, not September 1, but you know what I mean, like September 8th or whatever it is. Or just like, hey, I want to go dabble and learn more about each one of these apps to try out. I don't know where I'm headed yet. Either way is fine. Cool. All right, so have at it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. See you in a bit.
Like, all right, cool. So you guys have been working on some stuff. It's 3:10. We're going to kind of wrap up this and send you on your way for the last bit of independent work and then doing the project and sort of turning everything in. Before we close officially, any final questions, comments, anything?
What's your thinking on the project in terms of do you want us to upload the little things we've done along the way so that you have evidence for Anne Marie and Fran of the work, or are you okay with just whatever shorter thing we do now?
I'm okay with either. Like if you have a bunch of things in there that you did sort of like, let's say halfway on each just to try them, fine. But if you did like 10 minutes on like a couple of them, like, no, I really like this other thing and have devoted more time to one, feel free to put the one time thing in there. Like the one that you're really focused on. I know, because I want to be flexible, because I know that some people can't choose right away what that one thing is going to be. So they'll do a bunch of like halfway done assignments. That's totally cool with me, because that's hopefully means they're getting something out of it. If you have instantly connected to something, you're like, wait, no, I know exactly what I want to do. Don't waste the time with like those little things. Like, you know what you want to do, make something that's going to be useful to you that you took from this class and put that in there as the project. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Because yeah, I mean, I want it to be useful. So I'm totally happy with a bunch of hodgepodgey stuff if that's your process and working through it. So it's totally up to you guys. But hopefully it's been valuable. I tried to make this is weird. This is only like, I've never done one of these before, a 6-hour sort of on Zoom each day thing. Hopefully it wasn't too draining in terms of direct contact. Hopefully I gave you guys enough breaks of independence and stuff.
Do you need physical therapy for your hips after that?
It's possible.
I think we all need physical therapy for our hips.
It's possible.
Yeah.
So
Just sitting.
yeah, so that's what I mean. I tried to be cognizant of the time. And I tried to kind of every sort of hour and a half or so work in some independent time to kind of walk around and stretch. And but yeah, hopefully it was good. Share, and I recommend sharing whatever you do, put up there, you know, include all of us on the sharing of it so people can see what other people have done and sort of gravitated towards. And basically from here on out, what we're going to do is do your work. Just do whatever you want to do. No pressure to get done today. If you want to poke around some things and update it later, that's sort of a living document. I'll check back in a week. And if, as long as everything's up there in a week, I'll let Fran know and that everything's good. And then beyond that, I hope it was 2 days well spent, and reach out anytime.
It was really helpful. Thank you.
Good. Good luck.
Final question, Chris.
Yes, final question.
I used Explain Everything to create my final project. And it's 4 pages. So if I hit the save, I save it as a video, and then to my photos. Does it take a little while to render? Because I went to look at photos right away.
No, no, don't do that. You can't even leave Explain Everything. You got to do the render and
there will be no leaving.
No, yeah, you got to go back to Explain Everything, export it again, and once you do it and you get that little, that stay there, don't move. Yes, leave that, stay there, don't move. There it goes, almost done. Still going. Now it said something.
Now it said save to photos.
There you go. Yes. Good.
Okay, now it's in. Now I can go to photos.
Yeah, it'll be in photos. Then you can decide if you're going to put it on YouTube. You want to stick it in Drive. I recommend YouTube for videos because it just is, that's what it does, you know?
Oh.
Oh, there it goes. See?
Mine was like 1minute and 20 seconds on Explain Everything, and it wouldn't export because it said it was too long. So I'm going to just do an iMovie.
That's fine. And what you could also do too is if you wanted to, you can, because I showed you how to do the screen recording on your iPad. For the purposes of this class, I'm fine if you do a screen recording and then play it in Explain Everything so it screen records the whole thing. For the purposes of this, that's fine. You know, because again, it's about sort of discovery and practice and experimentation. So you can do that. I'm cool with that.
Okay, so then upload. Okay, and then I'll share the final. Got it.
Cool.
I'll put it in the practice files.
Yeah, and then put the link to it in the document, in the thing, so that everyone has it. Awesome. Well, all right, guys. Thank you very much. Hope this was good. Reach out anytime.